We are live. Welcome, everyone. We're going to be reviewing a debate between Nadir and Louis here of Truth Defenders. We're going to be taking a deep dive into this question: was Muhammad demon possessed? During this live stream, we'll also open it up for call-ins if there are some people who want to call in and specifically talk about this topic. But without further ado, Truth Defenders, do you want to present yourself in some sort of manner?
Sure. I'm just an ordinary man. I used to do open air preaching for about 20 years, out on 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica. I've done evangelism in different countries, all over the United States. My goal is to reach people with the gospel, and obviously apologetics is a big part of that. So I just use apologetics and polemics to remove, as Charles Spurgeon said, the rubbish that gets in the way of the gospel in people's minds. So I've taken the time to study comparative religion, philosophy, sciences, such and so forth. Nothing formal, but just on my own. It's my own desire to study these things and engage people on them, ask questions, make comments myself. And that's about it.
Cool. So looking forward to hearing this debate. We do have an opening little statement here we want to focus on. This was sort of the style the debate went in. This was not a typical debate where you have two openings. It was a bit different. Not because Ministry of Muslims planned it that way, just how it unfolded. So, but you can only do so much. So I'll go ahead and pull up our beginning clip here. This is Nadir's opening statement of his opening. So he went second in the debate.
So much for that, Louis, for all those fabrications. So a lot of what Louis said is fabrications. He's just making stuff up. Listen, let me explain to Louis how debates are supposed to work. When you cite that this thing actually happened, you should show the reference, like what I will do tonight. And you should say, look, right there in your book, it says this. Now, I try to keep track. Not everything what he says was a fabrication. A lot of it was just his wacky, quacky interpretations. But now what we have here, what's complicated about this debate is what is true from what Louis is saying and what is stuff which he is just making up. But in reality, I don't think he's making it up. I think he's just going to like anti-Islamic websites. He didn't do his own personal research to find out if these things are really true or not. So I think that's basically what's happening. But here's a list of some of the fabrications. He said he died from his aorta being cut. This is nonsense. There's no reference for that. He said he couldn't differentiate between, a satanic verse or one from God. Satan removed his heart. I mean, the list goes on of all this nonsense and fabrications which do not exist in our text, which, I don't know what to do at this point. Just tell him, stop making stuff up.
Thanks,
So
Nadir.
that would be the gist of his sort of entire point, right? That was his main rebuttal against the points you brought up, and we'll dive into where those are specific. And if you guys are familiar with this channel, I've gone over some of those points before. They are from very reliable sources, but you won't have to take our word for it because we'll go ahead and do it. Now, I was watching this debate live, and the only thing that could go through my mind during that is this movie clip from A Princess Bride. Very older movie, but it's a good one. And I think this depicts it quite well.
To bluff, huh? So you're probably playing cards, and he cheated.
Liar! Liar! Liar!
Get back, witch!
So yeah, that's the only thing that went through my mind is that's all he's got, right? So this is the opening. So in a debate, you're supposed to be bringing your best material to the forefront for this period. So 20 minutes, which I was surprised he had that much time. Normally, I know whenever I debated him, he demanded 10 minutes. Was, hey, you can't.
Yeah, he didn't like. Originally, I had requested 40-minute openings. because I had so much material to present. And the reason I encapsulated everything was because it was narrowed down to 20 minutes. So I wanted to get out the points, and then anything he had a question about, I was going to bring up the reference and throw it at him. But I don't think we ever got to that.
Nope, just liar across the board.
And I want to know how. I mean, I got to look under my bed. How does he know where I was getting my materials? Is he running around in my closet, hiding, watching me do my studies? How does he know where I got the information from, where I went to on the internet, or what books I'm reading or not reading, according to him?
See,
that was kind of creepy.
In my mind, it's probably, I would think that it's probably projection. This is what he does for research. And because of that, then he's sort of like, okay, it's got to be used. Because just like his statement, you know, the wacky, quacky interpretation.
The wacky,
quacky interpretation. Wacky, quacky interpretation.
Now,
So,
usually
yeah,
when I'm doing my studies, I usually go to Muslim sources. That's the majority, probably 90% of the time. The time that I go to non-Muslim sources is if I know someone's spoken on it, written on it, or whatnot, and then I just need to find the reference. Then I go back to the Muslim sources and verify. So with this study, I went to all the Muslim websites I could find dealing with these subjects and getting their commentaries and their references from their websites. And in fact, when he was doing his speaking, he was bringing up websites that are the websites I went to from Muslims. Islam Q&A, such and so forth. So I don't know why he thinks these are not Islamic sources that I'm referencing. Or the information. Yeah. Let me clarify that. I said this before. It's if somebody's speaking to me and they're referencing the Bible and they're not giving me chapter and verse, but I know my Bible. I know if it's biblical what they're saying. They might paraphrase. They might not say, verbatim, but they're giving me something biblical. I know it's there. Something concerning the character of the persons in Scripture. I'll know if they're being honest or not. I'm surprised Nadir couldn't figure out that the information I was presenting is part of Islamic history concerning Muhammad. So for him to say that it's lies, fabrications, non-Muslim materials, that kind of surprised me that he was not familiar with his own sources.
No, that's what, whenever I did my debate with him, that's definitely something he immediately brought up. You don't have all your references there, right there on the screen for me to read right now. It's like, dude, no, you cut me down. I had a lot more presented. 2 days before the debate, you removed time from the opening, so I had to cut things. So, but just as far as reference goes, here is Muhammad saying that his aorta is being cut from the poison on the food he ate at Khaybar. Now, this is Aisha who is saying that this is something Muhammad said.
Before we go to the actual hadith, can I reference a Quranic verse?
Sure.
Because it's very important that people understand that Muhammad had been given a warning by Allah concerning misrepresentation. And if we go to the Quran, chapter 69, verses 44 through 51, we can see that Allah was already warning Muhammad, giving him a stern warning that misrepresenting him was a serious thing. And if you pull up, again, Quran 69, 44 through 51, we can see right there that this had already been brought forth. I don't see, it's a very weird thing for this whole dynamic of Muhammad bringing forth so-called revelations that he himself later contradicts. It's a very strange phenomenon, which tells us that the Quran could not have been one man, one author, one place, because there are so many things in there that are so contradictory that it's as if somebody didn't know what was already in part of the Quran and then introduced something new and didn't realize there was a contradiction. And that's why they invented the concept of abrogation, because they had to deal with the fact that there's contradictions in the Quran. So Muhammad said, oh, well, Allah abrogates some verses and causes others to be forgotten. Well, how convenient.
And don't worry, we'll go back to that hadith in just a second. But this is the background, and it's definitely needed to have the context. So, yeah. So I've
Yeah,
got
so
that pulled up.
Yeah, you want me to read it?
Sure.
Yeah, it says in Quran 69:44 through 51. And if the messenger were to invent any sayings in our name, we should certainly seize him by his right hand, and we should certainly then cut off the artery of his heart. And in parentheses, this commentator has aorta. So this is a warning to Muhammad by Allah that if he did fabricate something in his name, he would take him and sever his aorta.
And the even worse, in the translation I have up on the screen, it specifically says, then severed his aorta.
Right.
So it's specifically saying, this is how he's going to die if he is a false prophet. So that's kind of critical.
So then we go to the hadith where we see how Muhammad died, correct? Is that where we were going?
Yep. Right here, this is Sahih al-Bukhari 4428 is the one I have up. And if you just go to sunan.com and search aorta, it pops up pretty easily.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm sorry, I can't read that. Oh, yeah, I can. Here we go. The Prophet, in his ailment in which he died, used to say, "Oh, Aisha, I still feel the pain caused by the food I ate at Khaybar. At this time, I feel as if my aorta is being cut from the poison." So he was crying out in agony, and some of the narrations say that he was in anguish, crying out that he felt as if his aorta was being severed, being cut, just like his Allah told him he would kill him if he fabricated something about him. So we got to ask the question, what was fabricated? Well, that's where the satanic verses come in. And we can get into that anytime you want.
Sure. Want to hit those, that's fine. Or we can go back and see some of the debate here. Again, guys, this is open call-in, so if you guys want to have a conversation based upon this or have been invited, there has been some individuals who were specifically invited to join us that I'm hoping join us to debate upon this topic.
Yep. So there you have it, folks. That point on the severing of the aorta, Nadir was wrong. It is in their books, starting from the Quran and then the biographies of Muhammad, the narrations clearly state that Allah severed his aorta, or he allowed it to be severed.
That it would have to be specifically that Allah allowed it, because he didn't warn Muhammad that that food was poisoned until afterwards, after he'd already eaten it. Well, so Muhammad ate it, spit it back out. He was chewing on it, spit it back out, said, Gabriel just told me this food's poisoned. And that's where he got the poison from. Enough of it got into his system to kill him years later.
And it killed his companion too, because he allowed him to eat it. He was like, don't worry about it. Chow down.
I would have spit it out if I would have realized that
spit it on Mo.
That it was poison, but I trusted that Allah's messenger would not eat it if it was poison. So there we go.
Yep. Yeah, and it's funny because Muhammad and the Muslims always like to bring tests. They always want to challenge people with tests. Well, this Jewish lady tested Muhammad. Tit for tat. You kill my dog, she kills your cat. Or Muhammad in this case. They can't get upset that this woman tested Muhammad in his prophethood, because he's always throwing out these challenges, and even they make those death challenges. Let's curse one another and see whose statements are true or whatnot.
That's so anti-Christian. That concept is just so anti the biblical God that you just randomly curse someone in order to prove whose God is true. No, that's not how they did it. Now, there were times that they did do trials between the two, but it wasn't just random people on the street throwing curses at each other.
Now, concerning translations, because there's a comment there, who is it? Frankly Garcia. These are translations by Muslims, for Muslims. So if there's ever a question of mistranslation, we would have to take it up with the Muslim publishing companies and their scholars that they use to give the translations. We're just presenting it now. We can easily check the Arabic and see what the words are. You know, there's a lot of Arabic speaking Christians. So, but all of the translations that I know of speak of the life artery or the aorta. It's a reference to what Allah warned against or warned about in the Quran. So it is.
Think how crazy that is. So if I were to say, you know, if I ever gave a false message about God, God would strike me down with lightning. And God struck me down with lightning. Okay. Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good evidence that something I said was a lie.
Yeah.
So, whoopsie. And definitely wouldn't be without sin in that case.
Right.
Because you don't know what that... Now, we're specifically using this referring to the satanic verses. But that could have been referring to anything that was said in addition.
Yeah.
So it's not just saying one time. If I ever said anything one time, it could have been multiple times, considering this was years later.
Right. Yeah.
So, let's see here.
Answer, man.
Pull up the debate.
This fueled his.
Didn't realize it to autoplay, but work. So this is Ministry of Muslims debate. We're going to go through a couple of points given. I might just go ahead and skip to where you start giving your points. I think that should be where we should be because they introduce what's going on. Again, if you guys want to see debates like this, Ministry of Muslims does a great job at it. They also do great conferences. I've enjoyed every one of those that I've been to. So make sure to check them out and check their website out.
But you can't go crazy over, or, you know, it just messes everything up. So we'll stick to the time. And you both agreed that Louis is going to go first, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Now that surprised me because
Yeah.
normally Nadir demands to go first. Because I know that definitely in my debate, even though I was giving the positive that Islam does support slavery, technically I was supposed to go first, but that was part of the list of requirements I was sent by Nadir was I got to go first.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I have quotes by Muslim scholars that say Islam retained slavery for several purposes: to propagate children that would be slaves and continue to, basically grow the religion. So it'll increase the religion and it'll give you more slaves because the offspring of your slave women will be forced into Islam.
Yeah, so that debate, although that was the name of the debate and the main thrust, is supposed to be the main point of the argument. Nadir immediately admitted right away that yes, Islam supports slavery, it condones it, and that's a good thing. In fact, he wants slaves. And if you guys want to see that debate there, go over on Reasoned Answers. It was, I think, about a year ago that I did the debate on there with him. So just to show, normally he shifts the topic, and you'll see him shift the topic in this one, which isn't a surprise.
So I will remove you from the screen, Nadir, and then Louis, you got 20 minutes, and then it'll be Nadir. So,
Okay.
all right, have fun, guys.
Thank you. Okay, hello everybody. I am Louis Lionheart, and our subject matter of today is Muhammad, epilepsy, and demonic possession. And because of our limited time, although I'm going to cite a lot of references, I'm not going to be exhaustive with them unless Nadir requests that. So I want to start by emphasizing very clearly that as Christians, although we do acknowledge that there is such a thing as demon possession, and that demon possession manifests itself in certain ways, this, one of the ways being epilepsy or epileptic-like symptoms, the two are not united together as if every epileptic is demonic possessed or every demonically possessed person is an epileptic. So here in Nadir's arguments with Matt Slick just recently on the debate, he made the assumption that we believe that if somebody shows signs of epilepsy, therefore they must be demon possessed. That's not what we believe. So what I want to look at is the history of Muhammad. Was Muhammad an epileptic? Was he a demoniac? Was he both? And based
So just to point that out, yes, as a Christian, I can confirm that not everyone that is epileptic is demon possessed. I've actually had a couple of friends that were epileptic. In fact, one of them passed away due to his epileptic seizures a few years ago. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So for
unfortunate
Nadir to
mental.
do that, to try to make it seem like the Christians just, stigmatize all epileptics as demoniacs that's just dishonest, because we don't do that. Not at all.
No. So just confirming that main point there, saying nope, not actually true on that one, as far as his Nadir's claim.
based on all the sources that we can look at from the Muslim perspective, be they Shiite, Sunni, or otherwise, they clearly teach that Muhammad showed signs of both epilepsy and demonic influence. And my personal position is that Muhammad was damaged at birth. He had a frontal lobe damage that, from all the signs and all of the medical analysis of the narrations concerning his condition, it shows that he must have had some kind of an epileptic condition that was capitalized by the devil himself to use him in his weaknesses, his frailties, to bring forth what we know as the religion of Islam. And this is shown very clearly by all the sources from before Muhammad was born, through his parents, his lineage, his tribe, all the way up to his death. And we can see that with pre-Islamic Arabia. It was pagan. So in the environment to which Muhammad was birthed, it was a pagan environment. There was paganism. And we know that with paganism comes demonic activity. When the pagans worship their idols, their deities, the Bible says very clearly that there are demons behind these idols, such as with Roman Catholics when they worship the images of Mary or the saints. There are demons behind these pagan idols. The Bible tells us clearly that God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. We don't look to objects to reach God. We don't use them as objects of reverence in order for us to reach. God is omnipresent. He hears our prayers. He hears our thoughts, our hearts. So we don't need idols. Not that there's anything wrong with images per se, but when you look at an object as an object, when you look at an idol as an object of worship, now you're going contrary to what the Bible teaches.
So just real quick on that, just reconfirming that, because I do love quoting C.S. Lewis, and he did cover that in the Screw Tape Letters specifically. So the Screw Tape Letters, if you guys are not familiar with it, is basically letters from one demon to another. And C.S. Lewis was just sort of publishing it as that sort of format. And one of the things that one demon said to another, the greater demon to the lesser demon, was,
uncle and nephew, right?
Uncle and nephew, as far as what they would consider themselves, but that's not how we would call them necessarily, considering all their ins and outs. So he was talking about prayer. So he's working his patient, the person that he was trying to influence into hell, was a Christian. He was dealing with prayer life. He's very early Christian. So the uncle demon says to him, all's not lost. It's not terrible. Just focus his prayers on objects over the actual being of God. Make his God into a cross on a wall or into the corner of a room. That's where his God resides. And if you can focus him there and turn that idol into their God, then he's as good as in our Father's camp. So yeah, they can be to keep focus on who we're actually praying to. But yeah, they can be devastating. Yes, there is. Muhammad did grow up pagan. He was a pagan. He worshipped pagan deities. He actively participated in that. Muslims go around saying, "Oh, Christianity is just paganism." I'm like, dude, Islam is the religion that was founded by a pagan here.
Yeah. Well, in fact, we have what was I going to pull up? Indian boy. Okay, never mind. I thought I had a slide relative to that right off the bat. Yeah, well, the paganism of Muhammad's time, it was a lot like animism and the spirits of the forest, jinns, genies. They were scared of different things, the evil eye, they were superstitious, such and so forth. This is why when Muhammad was born and they saw that he had a malady, he had that seal of prophethood. It was a tumor on his back between the shoulder blades, the size of a small child's fist, and with hair on it. And that was considered a sign of prophethood to them. Much like this young girl, Lakshmi, who was born a parasitic twin in India, and she had extra limbs. And what they did was they started worshiping her as a goddess. Eventually they did do a medical surgery and take care of her, but early on they started thinking she was a goddess incarnate, one of their pagan deities, and very superstitious. So that's the environment Muhammad was raised in, from what we can gather. Very animistic.
Real quick, yes, actually I have something to add to that, because there's another Indian person, another person in India that happened to. But I do need to make something clear. We're talking about praying to objects, as if you're praying to a deity as that object is an issue. Not if you have an object in your house that says, okay, I got cross up on the wall that I'm looking at right now. That doesn't mean that I'm worshiping that object. It's a symbol, it's a reminder, it's an icon, not an idol. So, but in India, there's also a birth defect. I forget what its name is, but it's when the tailbone is elongated, and basically you end up with a little tail. Some of these babies, and that was brought in as, in India, they believe that is the reincarnation of their monkey god.
Right.
And I remember growing up hearing about someone who had that birth defect, who was basically paraded around as God incarnate.
Yeah, and evolutionists will use those as vestiges. They say that's a remnant of ancestry to the primates. So every once in a while they come out, and it shows that we used to have tails at one point. They're so dumb. But yeah.
So that does happen. And let's go ahead and continue on with your presentation here.
So that being the case, Muhammad was born into a pagan environment. Muhammad's tribe was pagan. Muhammad's lineage was pagan. His parents were pagan. His grandfather was pagan. His uncle was pagan. And so all of these things influenced him. We know that from Islamic teachings that jinn, what we consider to be demons, and a lot of Muslim scholars as well consider them to be demons, can and do interact with human beings. And a lot of Muslim scholars, in fact, the majority of Muslim scholars, will admit that demonic possession is possible and that demons can influence. And when I say demons, they take that to mean jinn. And they have a concept of good jinn and evil jinn. That means good spirits and bad spirits, and interact with humanity. But the evil jinn can, in fact, interact with human beings in a physical way. In fact, the Islamic scholars teach that if a human being engages in sexual activity with his wife or in any other way and does not say the Bismillah, Satan partakes with them in the sexual activity. Now, we know from Muhammad's own narrative that his parents were pagan and died in paganism. Therefore, when Muhammad was conceived, the devil was involved. The Bible, I won't get into the details of the description that's given by Muslim scholars, because we have an audience here that might be offended by it. But it's very clear that Satan is involved in the union of sexuality with the husband and the wife when they engage intimately, if they do not say the Bismillah. And since we know that Muhammad's parents were not Muslims, Muhammad hadn't come to the scene, he didn't introduce Islam nor the Bismillah, they wouldn't have said that. Therefore, when they engaged in sexual activity and produced Muhammad, Satan was already there from the beginning. Then we also know from Islam.
Let me go ahead and read a few sources for that.
Go ahead.
That's a big one, and Muslims like to say those are fabrications as well. So we have in, and this is Sunan Ibn Majah, it says that the Prophet said, when any one of you has intercourse, Ibn Majah 19:19, it says, the Prophet said, when any one of you has intercourse with his wife, let him say, Allahumma Jani, oh good golly with Arabic, Jani Bisni Shaitana Wa Jani Bish Shaitana Ma Razaktani. Oh Allah, keep Satan away from me and keep Satan away from that with which you bless me. Then if you have a child, Allah will never allow Satan to gain control over him, or he will never harm him. And let me go over a couple, because the one that says that Satan gets involved in there is going to come up. Again, in Sahih Muslim 1434, it says, if anyone amongst you intends to go to his wife, he should say, in the name of Allah, O Allah, protect us against Shaitan and keep away the Shaitan from the one that you have bestowed upon us. And if he has ordained a male child for them, Satan will never be able to harm him. This is important. You got to remember these points. The Prophet said, and this is in, we got the Riyad as-Salihin. It's another Islamic source. The Prophet said, if anyone intends to have sexual intercourse with his wife, he should say Bismillah, Allah, and then it goes through that gibberish again. And it says, oh Allah, keep us away from Satan and keep Satan away from that which you have bestowed upon us. And if Allah has ordained a child, then Satan will not harm him. And then we go to this one, Sahih al-Bukhari 110. The Prophet said, name yourselves with the name, but do not name yourselves with the kunya, name of Abdul Qasim. And whoever sees me in a dream, surely he has seen me, for Satan cannot impersonate me. And whoever tells a lie against me, then let him occupy his seat in hellfire. Now, I don't know why I have that one in there, but Muhammad, Islamic kind teaching. So here you have, if Muhammad's parents would have recited the Bismillah or said the gibberish that Muhammad told them to say, Satan would never have been able to touch him. It says that those chants, those incantations would have protected him from Satan. But we do know that Satan was influenced by the devil. Satan did oppress him. Satan did make him suicidal. So the parents of Muhammad apparently never said this. Oh, here we go. This is from the one who has intercourse and does not say Bismillah, the Shaitan wraps himself around the penis and has intercourse along with him. Ahmed ibn Musa ibn al-Abbas ibn Mujahid, who is considered one of the Muslims' greatest historians or scholars. What are Ibn Mujahid's credentials in Islam? One of Islam's greatest scholars, Ibn Mujahid, was without parallel in learning the recitation of the Quran, its interpretation, commentaries, and style. He was a man of unwavering dedication to the Quran. We have in Ibn Mujahid a great scholar indeed. Sheikh Ahmed Didat is the one that said this. So he's telling people this is a great scholar, respected, knowledgeable. And this scholar is the one that says that the Shaitan will wrap himself around the penis and be engaged in the intercourse. So according to Islamic doctrines, demons can interact physically with humans, psychologically and spiritually. So there you have it. Muhammad was sired, and obviously we don't believe any of this, but Muslims believe it. So they have to accept the fact that when Muhammad's parents engaged in sexual union, in which Muhammad's mother was pregnant, Satan was involved in that. It was a threesome, a demonic threesome. Pretty bad.
Oh boy. That's one of the rules issues about making rules up afterwards. Hey guys, you gotta do XYZ. Well, XYZ didn't happen before that point then. So that would have been the same for anyone that was born before Islam in that area would have had this issue. And of course, that does include Muhammad himself. So,
that the devil, the Shaitan, touches every human being with his two fingers, he pokes them, except for Jesus Christ and his mother Mary. Those are the only two that the Quran and the...
I don't think you had the reference about Jesus and his mother being the only two. Now, it's interesting that
I
it's
do have it
included
here.
Jesus and his mother. So if you want to go ahead and give that one,
Okay.
that would be great value.
Okay, Sahih al-Bukhari, hadith number 4641. And it says this, narrated by Sa'id bin al-Musayyab. Abu Hurairah said, I heard Allah's apostle saying, there is none born among the offspring of Adam, but Satan touches it. A child, therefore, cries loudly at the time of birth because of the touch of Satan, except Mary and her child. And then there's another one, Sahih Bukhari, hadith number 4506, which says, the prophet said, when any human being is born, Satan touches him at both sides of his body with his 2 fingers, except Jesus, the son of Mary, whom Satan tried to touch but failed, for he touched the placenta cover instead. So there you have it.
So there you go. So Jesus wasn't touched, but Muhammad was.
Yeah.
So according to the sources, that's what we're left with as we go into this. So that's interesting, definitely in light of some of Nadir's comments later on.
Sunnah speak of as not being touched by the devil. So that would include Muhammad as being touched. So the conception was influenced by the devil. While Muhammad was in the womb, just before birth, Satan touched him with his 2 fingers. Then we hear, according to the Muslim narratives, that when Muhammad was 6 years old, he had an episode with 2 demons that appeared to him. They threw him down on the ground. They opened up his chest and removed what they call the part of Satan, some kind of a clot, some kind of a malady. And they did some kind of surgical procedure in order to remove Satan's part from Muhammad's heart. They opened up his chest and took out.
Go ahead.
Let me cite the reference for that. We have here the Life of Muhammad.
Ooh, I like that one.
Better than last time. So
it's a good book.
In here, we have page 36. I mean, I have it here, so I'll read it, but we'll go to the actual source. 2 men in white clothes came to me, this is Muhammad speaking, with a golden basin full of snow. They took me and split open my body. When they took my heart and split it open, they took out from it a black clot, which they flung away. Then they washed my heart and my body with that snow until they made them pure. This is Muhammad at Mecca by W.N. Watt, publication Oxford Press. And they're citing the references, and I'll keep going. Here's the story told by Muhammad's witness, related in Gulliam's translation of Ibn Ishaq, which is this book I just held up. Muhammad's friend's father said to me, I am afraid that this child has had a stroke. So take him back to his family before the result appears. So Muhammad's mother asked me what happened and gave me no peace until I told her. When she asked if I feared a demon had possessed him, I replied that I did. The Life of Muhammad by Gulliam, Oxford University Press. So here in this biography of Muhammad, one of the most respected ones, it is saying that when Muhammad suffered this episode with the 2 personages, kind of like, I guess, Joseph Smith, 2 personages, appeared to him, they split him open, washed him, took out a black spot and flung it. There's other references that say that spot was the spot of Satan, by which Satan could enter into Muhammad and influence him. So that was removed. So we should expect that from the age of 6, Muhammad could not be influenced by Muhammad, because that window into Muhammad by which the devil could enter and influence him was removed. And the people around him believed that he had a demon, or he had some kind of a malady, or some kind of a episode that was epileptic-like. That's the narration, folks.
So yeah, I'd say that works quite well. Now, it's interesting that 2 demons removed this doorway for Satan to be able to come in and influence him. Seems a bit odd why they would be working against him in this story, but okay.
His entrails, they washed them with Zamzam water, and they supposedly removed the possibility of Satan ever influencing him again, because that was the doorway for the devil to enter into Muhammad and to influence him. So then we have him moving on along. Later on, when Muhammad receives his revelation, it says that he thought he was demon-possessed. He was out going into the cave. He would go into solitude and he would meditate. And during one of those meditations, a demon appeared to him. That demon is, according to Muslims, Gabriel. But we don't know that for sure. That demon squeezed him, almost killed him, let him go, told him to recite, did this 3 times. And Muhammad eventually was released. He ran home to his wife, yelled at her, cover me, I fear I'm demon possessed. She put a sheet over him, and he was known as the sheeted one. When the
Just want to focus on that for a second. So he thinks he's demon possessed. And
Right.
his first reaction is, I'm going to run to my wife to hide.
Correct.
Guys, in the comments, think that through for a second. As I'm a husband, right? My first reaction, if there's some sort of attack of some demon or even a physical attack, is not to run and hide behind my wife and push my wife out in front, which is what Muhammad did, right? He ran to his wife for protection. That's the act of a child to a mom, not the act of a husband to a wife. The husband should stand up and take it. We can already see that there is something wrong with either his relationship with this woman or the relationship or just him in general being a broken individual. And I do
Let's
think
not
he
forget,
is.
she was 15 years his senior. She was the business owner, the breadwinner. She employed him. She's the one that proposed to him for marriage. She was one tough bird, and she's the one that would rule the roost up until she died. And then Muhammad went on his plurality of wives after that. While she was around, he didn't dare look at another woman cross-eyed. I mean, she would have probably given him a whooping. So
Well, she's also the same age because his mom was 15 years old when she had him due to some sources. So that's the same time gap there. Interesting.
yeah, if we go to Hadith of Bukhari 9111, it gives the narration. It tells the story. It's a lengthy part. I'll just cut to the chase with it. But if you pull it up, that way there's no question about.
Which one is it?
Bukhari 9111.
It's Bukhari.
And there's all these different numeric systems that they have. They drive me up the wall because sometimes I'll take whatever website I'm going to and I'll cut and paste the info, and they have one numeric system. Then I'll cut and paste from something else, and it has a different numeric system. So sometimes it jumps. My slides, anyways, jump back and forth. I got to go through and try to give it one consistent numeric system.
Okay, it's not pulling it up for me. You said 911?
Yeah, go to Bukhari. Which website are you on?
Sunnah.
Okay, just type in let's see, neck muscles. Let's see if it comes up. And twitching. Excuse me, folks. I'm a little bit under the weather here.
Let's see here.
And you'll see how just when we're going through this, folks, you're going to notice how simple it is to track down these resources, this information. It's there. This day and age of technology where we can, at the tip of our fingers, find references. We can download PDF files. We can, is it coming up for you?
Got it. Had to specifically search it.
Yeah. So it's just keywords. It's certain things, but it's there. You'll be able to find it.
Assuming this is the one that you're referring to, because it is.
Yeah. So if you go towards where it says prophet, because it's kind of lengthy. Let's see, in the middle of.
Here's prophet, divine inspiration.
Let's see. Does yours read from the beginning the commandment of the divine inspiration?
The commandment of the divine inspiration to Allah's apostle. Yep.
Okay, that's the one I have here. So I'll just read that in the relevant section. The angel caught me forcefully and pressed me so hard that I could not bear it anymore. Then he released me again and asked me to read Iqra. And I replied, I do not know how to read. Come on, Jibril. The man can't read. Leave him alone, right? So he does this 3 times to where finally Muhammad probably just started singing some weird thing just to get Jibril off his back. Either way, supposedly he finally recited the Quran. And then we have it saying this. Then Allah's apostle returned with the inspiration, his neck muscles twitching with terror, till he entered upon Khadijah, his wife, and said, "Cover me, cover me." They covered him till the fear was over, and he said, "Oh, Khadijah, what's wrong with me?" Then he told her everything that had happened and said, "I fear that something may happen to me." Khadijah said, "Never. But have the glad tidings, for by Allah, Allah will never disgrace you as you keep good relations with your kinfolk," such and so forth. Now, where does Khadijah get all this from? She's not a Muslim at this point.
No.
Allah hadn't revealed the Quran. The pagans at the Kaaba didn't worship Allah the way Muhammad eventually presented him. So what Allah is Khadijah comforting Muhammad with? Alillah, the deity, the God that was the pagan deity. It's very suspicious to me. So there you have it. Muhammad
I'd look at this and saying, something here doesn't add up. It looks like it might have slightly been fabricated maybe 200 years after Muhammad's death. But that's just me. So going on back to the debate itself. So that was the source there that's being referenced.
And then appeared to him in front of his wife. His wife is the one that said, "Do you see this apparition?" He said, "Yes." She sat him on her lap. She said, "Do you see him now?" He said, "Yes." She exposed herself. She asked him, "Do you now see him?" Muhammad said, "No, he's gone." She told him, "Well, he's one of the good ones. Because if he was a bad one, he would have stayed." We don't know to what extent she exposed herself, but she exposed herself. So her test for there being a demon or a good angel was to expose herself and see if the demon would be entertained by that.
Or he was just having mental issues and his wife exposing himself kind of distracted him.
Yeah, something was going on there. I mean, how did she know that was the test of good to test jinns if they're good or bad? I mean, maybe she just wasn't so hot. And the demon's like, "I'm out of here," you know.
I'm out. I'm good. I'm good. Don't need to see any of that stuff.
I've seen enough. That's enough. And bailed. And then she's like, he had to have been a good one. Couldn't have possibly been me, right?
What's that? Again, the concept of a good demon, bad demon would have had to have been rooted in the pagan ideals around, not in Christianity, because you don't see that you don't see that sort of concept in the Bible. In the Bible, demons are bad.
Right.
In every situation, you don't have a bad one and a good one. Now, if you're saying, well, maybe it's good, maybe it was an angel, a messenger of God, maybe it was a demon. If you look at the Bible, I can't think of any situation where a messenger of God starts choking a prophet.
Right.
So,
and then it's like, and then they convert. Jinn in Islam, they convert from good to bad. They become Muslims. Which is kind of weird.
Yeah, again, not something found in Christianity, something found in the pagan culture around them.
Right.
So let's go ahead and continue on with this.
Then we have Muhammad being suicidal. After a certain time, Muhammad stopped receiving revelations, according to him. He became depressed. He became suicidal. He would go up to a high mountain to toss himself off. That was when another demon appeared to him. It says that when he looked at the horizon, he saw a vision of an angel. He claimed it was, well, the Muslim scholars say it was Jibril, but that's debatable. Everywhere he would turn, the apparition would follow. This tells us that that image was in his head. Because if there's something in front of you and you turn your head, that it's not going to follow you. But for him, it did. Supposedly, the revelations that came to Muhammad were through the ringing of bells, the fluttering of feathers.
Let's go with the suicide. So, yeah, Muhammad was suicidal. We can see Ibn Ishaq Sirat Rasulullah, which again, we have the biography of Muhammad. And I've shown this before in the other streams. I have a whole bunch of biographies of Muhammad by Muslims for Muslims. Again, I like going to other people's primary source materials. I enjoy reading other authors on different religions, such and so forth, but I always enjoy going to the references. I have this thing about reading footnotes, highlighting footnotes, and tracing them down. And so my studies just, before you know it, I'm like, oh my goodness, it was one paragraph. Now I'm all the way over here. Yeah, it's just how I do it. But because I want to get to the bottom of this, I want to leave no question, no doubt that the information I'm reading, I'm presenting to somebody else, is accurate as best as possible. We need to have integrity as Christians to not just hear something and then, I mean, obviously there's men we trust, teachers and women, and they present information and they have a reputation. They're trustworthy. So I don't have to verify everything that's coming from certain people, although I do. But there are times we can just quote somebody and say, oh, I'm pretty certain what that guy said is going to be in the sources. But eventually you want to find it and you want to be able to present it and point it to them. So here, concerning Muhammad's suicidal tendencies, Ibn Ishaq in the biography of Muhammad, page 106, it says, now, none of Allah's creatures was more hateful to me than an ecstatic poet or a man possessed. I could not even look at them. I thought, woe is me, poet or possessed. Never shall Quraysh, his tribe that was there that he was trying to reconcile with, say this of me. I will go to the top of the mountain and throw myself down that I may kill myself and gain rest. Another source, History of Tabari, translated by Montgomery Watt, page 71. There was no one of Allah's creation more hateful to me than a poet or a madman. I could not bear to look at either of them. So he detested these folks. There was something about them he couldn't handle. And so he was afraid that he was going to be labeled as one of these. He said, I said to myself, being Muhammad, your humble servant is either a poet or a madman. Muhammad is saying that. I am either a loon or insane, or what a poet which were considered to be demonic possessed, or an insane person. That was his thought. Something's going on with me that causes me to think I'm either insane, I've lost my marbles, or I'm one of these demonic possessed poets. And so then he says, but the Quraysh shall never say this of me. I shall take myself to a mountain crag, hurl myself down from it, kill myself, and find relief that way. This man had a lot of issues, mental anguish, suicidal, and there's other references, same thing. Az-Zuri said same thing. He would go to the mountaintops to throw himself down. You have, there's two references in Az-Zu, it's Az-Zuhris, his materials. So these are materials that Muslims go to. These are their sources, they're scholars, they're interpreters of the Quran and the Sunnah. So they make it very clear Muhammad was suicidal.
And guys, if we have one that's dealing with suicidal tendencies, that's a horrible thing to be going through. They need help. But revelations from God should not make you suicidal. Just to let you know, that seems to be an issue. We do have a comment in the live stream. That's a nice little recap here. Yep. And sounds about right. Ran to his wife. Yep. And she was the one that decided he was a prophet. So it's not coming from Jibreel first. It wasn't Jibreel that's saying, hey, you're a prophet. It wasn't this illusion or this demon who's saying you're a prophet. It's his wife who's putting this into his head. And then from there, you get the cascade.
Yep.
He would fall to the ground. He would convulse. He would foam at the mouth, groan like a camel. He would sweat on a cold day. These are all signs that are consistent with epilepsy. This is why I'm saying it's not necessarily the case that it was one or the other. I believe it was both. That Muhammad had suffered from epileptic seizures, and Satan capitalized on it and used his weakness and frailty to produce Islam. We have also Muhammad claiming that Satan gave him some revelations that are called the Satanic verses. One time,
let's stop there for a second.
Sure.
Let's go with the bells.
The bells be a ringing.
The bells be a ringing. It tolls for thee. Let's see. I know I have it here. It's all there, kids. And when you're talking with Muslims, folks, teach them to be patient. They're usually, "Hey, man, give me the verse right now. Give me the reference. You don't have it. Ah, you're a liar. You are corrupt." It's like, no, calm down. Give me a second. I'm going to find it. I have it. It's there. It's in the book, I tell you. So that's all you got to be, is just be patient with their frustrations and teach them that they need to
and don't be surprised if they do something like this.
The bluff. Huh? So you're probably playing cards, and he cheated.
Liar! Liar! Liar!
Get back, witch!
So yes, don't be surprised if you get called liar multiple times, even though you're just basically restating what their scholars have said, and your sources are their scholars. I've been called a liar multiple times whenever I've just pointed to different sections of the Quran and said, this is what this section here says. And he says, no, that's not in the Quran. You're lying. You're just making that up. Well, then we pulled it up and actually went through it.
Yeah. Are you able to pull up a comic book that has a ton of these references right off the bat? And people,
if you send, are you able to send me the link?
You can look it up really quick. Just type in Muhammad's Believe It or Else, and you'll pull up the PDF file. It's a great comic book. I actually put one of these comic books in the hands of Shabir Ali, and during one of his debates, I went up to him. So here you go, Shabir, on behalf of Dr. Robert A. Morey, his favorite apologist.
Muhammad's, you said it's Believe It or Not PDF.
Believe It or Else. No, Believe It or Else.
Okay, Believe It or Else.
Yep, and it should bring up the PDF.
Let's see, I hope this is the correct one here. So let's go ahead, flip on over to it.
And if you go to page 3 on it, yep, that's it.
I actually am familiar with this.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Oh, the website I pulled up just brings up the PDF right off the bat. Why is that? Let's see. The Derafish Kaviani is the website. The first one that popped up when I typed in Muhammad's Believe It or Else.
Let's try this again.
It's a great little comic book.
Okay, Derafish.
Yep, that's the website. Okay. And then it'll come up. Okay, cool. If you go to page 3 on the comic book, that gives you the references. And people can just screenshot it. Now, I'm going to improve on this comic book. I know who has the ability to make the changes. I dare not say whom, because they want to kill the person that made the comic book. But we're going to clean it up and make the references a little more user-friendly.
So all those monkey men?
No, page 3 on the comic book.
Oh, page 3 on comic book.
Yep.
This one here.
If you had it. Yeah, go up, scroll up a little bit. Okay, right there. Yeah, that's showing him. Wait, do you see page 3 on the comic book itself?
Well, I see this page 2. This is page 3 here.
Okay, right there. Keeps going down. And you'll see a block right there. Look at all those references.
So
you
all
can,
of these right
make
here.
that bigger. Hit that little plus, and there you go. There you go, kids. It is. Look how many references we have to Muhammad's inspiration, so-called the ringing of the bells, the foaming of the mouth, such and so forth. It is there.
And just as a comparison here, we have multiple other individuals that Muslims will claim that are prophets in the Bible. None of them have these sort of things occurring.
Right.
Not found in other true prophets in the Bible or in the Torah. We don't see that. Moses never went through this. Jesus never went through this sort of stuff.
Mm-mm.
So, yeah, I'll leave that one. That one's. I would highly recommend it for everyone. In fact, just a moment here. Let me just take this and post this in the live chat. here. There you go. So I just posted the PDF in the live chat for you guys to look this up for yourself. You can take a look at those references as well as the rest of the comic book. Enjoy.
Yep. Good giggles.
To have reconciliation between him and the pagans, he asked Allah to reveal something to him that would reconcile them. Well, he didn't hear from Allah up for a while, and then eventually he supposedly got a revelation. And during that revelation that he was reciting, and there are different ways in which Muhammad would receive the revelation. Sometimes he was told to recite. Some Muslims are debated over if it was in his heart, if Jibril would read it to him first, and then he would copy Jibril, or if it was in his mind, or if he was reading it from something Jibril was showing him. So that being the case, when Muhammad was reciting Surah 53, he came to a point where he spoke of the pagan deities, Allat, Al-Uzza, and Manat. During that recitation, Muhammad said, these are the high exalted cranes, the Quranic. Their intercession is to be hoped for or desired. The pagans heard what Muhammad said. They rejoiced, they celebrated, they picked him up on their shoulders, they paraded him around like a champion and said, Muhammad has come back to the religion of his fathers.
So real quick here, before we go on that, we have a question here and then a comment down in the live chat. He said, Thomas Hall said, yeah, but what about the pagan prophets? Well, that was a good question, actually. And we do see that in a lot of different polytheistic views. We see that in the Greek. A lot of the Greek oracles would have convulsions or some sort of reaction whenever they're getting the insights from their god. So yes, you would see that in the pagan prophets, and that would have been something he would have been familiar with the environment Muhammad would have been. And maybe that's what he thought prophets should act like. So therefore he imitated it himself. Or was having these epileptic seizures and said, see, I must be one of these prophets because I'm having the same sort of issues.
Yep. Yeah, in the Sirah literature again, and not only here, but in other references, page 165, it mentions the Satanic verses. And it says that Muhammad was anxious. He was wishing to attract the pagans. And so he had a lot of anxiety because he wanted something to reconcile. But at the moment, it says that he actually prayed to Allah not to reveal something to him that would repel them even more. So Muhammad didn't want a revelation. But then Allah revealed chapter 53. And then when he got to verses, see, here's the thing. Some of the narrations make it clear that Muhammad was reading what Jibril had presented to him. And it says, when he got to this part, it says, have you then considered Allat al-Uzza, the third? They are the high exalted Quranic, the high exalted cranes. Their intercession is to be hoped for. So either Muhammad, when the devil influenced him, threw those into the recitation, they weren't there, or they were in that verse, in the Quran that Jibril was showing him. I kind of think they were there because when Jibril comes back to rebuke Muhammad, he brings him the Quran, Jibril does, and says, read to me again what you read. And Muhammad is reading, he gets to that part again and reads the Satanic verses again. So it's very suspicious that when Jibril comes to correct him, if the verses weren't in the Quran that Jibril brought him, he wouldn't have read those verses again. Very strange. So then Jibril rebukes him, said, I didn't bring you this. Well, no, I think you did, Jibril. Own up to it. You're the one who told him to read Iqra. He was reciting his Quran. He should have defended himself by saying a few other verses to protect him from the influence of the devil while he recites the Quran. He didn't do that. And so Satan was able to go through the back door. Since the one spot of Satan was removed, he had to come in through the back door. Sorry. I cracked myself up. Not feeling so good right now. So that's the problem. It's very clear. Jibril came to Muhammad or Satan came to Muhammad during a time of distress, division with his clan. He wanted a revelation that would reconcile, or something that would reconcile him. He told Allah not to give him anything because it might repel them. Jibril is the one, or Satan is the one that answered Muhammad's desires and gave him something that reconciled them. The Satanic verses. Then they rejoiced together. The pagans were, hurrah! Mo's come back to the religion of his fathers. He has spoken well of our goddesses. And they pick him up and they parade him around, according to one narration, and I'll cite it in a second. And then they all bow down. And it says, Muhammad bowed down, the Muslims bowed down, the pagans bowed down, every man bowed down. The turtle, the lizard, and the cow. Everyone bows down with Muhammad, and they are reconciled. And it wasn't until sometime later that Muhammad was convicted for whatever reason. We can speculate that maybe the Muslims were like, hey, Mo, what happened? We were supposed to only worship Allah. And then he got convicted and thought, oh, man, I need an out. And that's where Surah 22 comes in to rescue Muhammad, saying, well, don't worry about it, Muhammad. Everyone's got an issue with Satan put into their mouths. All the prophets. So in order to rescue himself, think of Muhammad's solutions. When he wanted to excuse himself for taking his son-in-law's, his stepson's wife, he abolished the adoption. When he wanted to justify to excuse himself for worshiping pagan deities, he condemned all the prophets and himself. That's not a good look for Muhammad, for Islam. This guy's just got too many excuses.
Couple crazy things of that. So, according to Islam, everything happens with Allah's approval. Nothing happens without his approval.
Right.
So, this slipping into the Quran, being able to be Muhammad being able to be deceived into adding these would have happened with the will of Allah. So he approved it, knew it was going to happen in advance, but yet somehow Gabriel, the messenger, didn't.
Right. And then they say they come up with this thing about, well, it was a test. Well, what kind of a test? What was the test? The guy speaks for Satan, throws out revelations that Muhammad couldn't differentiate between the Quran and the words of Satan, commits shirk, and we'll get to that, and then Allah intervenes and abrogates those two verses. Well, how is that Muhammad passing any test? Muhammad failed. He didn't pass, he failed. That's a problem. What kind of a test is that, to let Satan interject something into the mouth of Muhammad that it comes off as the words of Allah?
You have that, and then you have the claim that this has happened to all the prophets. Don't worry about it, right? Every prophet goes through that, which completely shows Muhammad as a false prophet just by that very statement there. Because if you go back to the Old Testament, if a prophet were to give any message in the Lord's name, in God's name, other than what God had given him to do, so if it did not come through, if someone made a prophecy saying X is going to happen, X didn't happen, they were, under that law, stoned to death. They were executed as a false prophet. So we know this could not have happened to Moses or to any of the other prophets that we have in the Old Testament, because they would have been immediately shown as a false prophet and stoned.
Yep. So we have in Riwayah 8, and this is from the book, The Satanic Verses, that I have cited before, and he gives you all these narrations that were handed down in the early 1st and 2nd centuries of Islam, considered to be valid, considered to be true, no question about it. The Muslims believed this was legitimate, and they handed it down, not worrying about isnads or any signs of hadith that wasn't around. They simply thought this is something that we can pass down about Muhammad. And in this one, number 8 in the book, The Satanic Verses, it gives you all the references and the isnads. So it goes all the way back, giving you all of the people involved in this narration. And it says this, that Muhammad recited words from Satan. The people rejoiced. Muhammad had returned to polytheism. The Satanic verses spread to Abyssinia. And then we have this. Jibril corrected him. Muhammad said, quoting Muhammad, I have obeyed Satan and have spoken his words, and he has become a partner in Allah's matter with me.
Oof.
Wow. What is shirk, kids? I don't think we need to dig that one up too much. We know what Muslims consider shirk, attributing partners to Allah. And this was in an act of worship and intercession that Muhammad brought forth the Satanic verses. And he himself said, I have obeyed Satan and spoken his words, and he has become a partner in Allah's matter with me. Now he is a murtad. Now he's an apostate. So what do we do with apostates in Islam? We can go to the Reliance of the Traveler. Have you kids read the Reliance of the Traveler? I have. See these books there? It's a lot of reading.
There's a lot in there.
So in here, yeah, there's a ton of junk. But it's what? Like 900 pages? No, 1100 and 1200. Nope. Let's see. We got 1230 plus pages.
Yeah, because I know specifically I use 952 a lot.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's the one, right? About apostates, if anybody is sane.
No, that's praying to Muhammad. Is you're page 952, 953. So there's a lot of pages.
Yeah, let me see where I put this reference. And it will come up here. And
as we're waiting, if you guys want to see this full debate without the constant interruptions, just straight up, go check out Ministry to Muslims. Their YouTube channel is M2M Network. The link to the original full debate is in the description. You guys can check it out there. Go check out his work. They do great work there and host some fantastic conferences that I have greatly enjoyed attending.
Yep. Okay, so we have in the Reliance of the Traveler, which is the Islamic book of jurisprudence, and the four major schools of Islamic jurisprudence overlap in agreement with the majority of that's in there, not 100%, but for the majority. So you can be sure that if you quote the Reliance of the Traveler, and they'll tell you as you're reading if this is not accepted by certain sects. But it is authoritative, and it says this. Section 08.1. When a person who has reached puberty and is sane voluntarily apostatizes from Islam, he deserves to be killed. Muhammad we have to question. Muhammad committed shirk. He apostatized. He went back to the religion of his fathers. Was he insane? That would be his only excuse according to Islamic law. If he wasn't insane, then he's guilty of shirk and is worthy of the death penalty according to Islamic law. What are the Muslims going to do?
You said this was what?
08.1.
08.1. Okay. Sorry, there's a lot of pages here to go through.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. Here, I'm going to do that. I think I have it here. Yeah.
600. Yeah, so this is justice. I thought it sounded familiar. So this is section on justice. And we got...
And folks, you got to question the Muslims and say, do you guys ever take the time to study our information, our materials to this level? I mean, obviously, I'm not a bona fide scholar or anything, but I enjoy studying. I enjoy looking into this, as you guys do. The Muslims rarely read any of our commentaries, any of our books. They definitely don't study the Bible. And it's not about he who reads most, but it's he who understands most. They need to read the Bible and then study it out to get to the truth, the facts of the matter, without all this garbage that they've been fed by their scholars. They're deceptive. You know, Nadir, you want to know who's lying? Your people, your scholars, your sheikhs and imams and whatnots. You guys are lying to us and lying to your own people. Knock it off.
Yeah,
Take the time to study.
most of the Muslims out there are not lying to you. They're just repeating things that they've been lied to about. So ask them where they find that. Over and over again, I've been told Jesus never claimed to be God. I'm like, dude, he claimed it over 70 times throughout the Gospels. He claims it directly multiple times, claiming the most holy name of God for himself, the name given to Moses. And then my question to the Muslims at that point is, do you know what that name is? And the answer is they don't, because they haven't read the sources. They don't know the context. They haven't actually read the Bible. In fact, most of the time from Muslims, I'll get, why should we read the Bible at all? We don't need the Bible. It's like, dude, you're telling me things out of the Bible without actually reading it yourself.
Right.
I don't tell you things unless I go find the sources. I don't tell you that Muhammad went and appeared to allow for sleeping with animals if I didn't find those sources.
Or his poor auntie.
His poor auntie. In fact, that's in here. It's not translated on this PDF, but it is a section here in this PDF that says you can sleep with animals. You can sleep with any person you have your right hand possesses, such as if you have control over your sister. You can have incest. It's these things they don't know, and the common Muslim doesn't know.
And that's an issue, especially in Pakistan, the intermarriages amongst tribes. They've thinned out the herd, and they're getting a lot of genetic defects in their offspring because of interbreeding with their own tribes and not going outside of anything. It's a real problem. Look that up. Genetic defects in Muslims in Pakistan. That's a side thing, but it's a real problem.
Yeah, I had a Muslim once tell me, you want to ban the Quran? I said, no, I want the Quran to be read. I want Congress to pull up the Quran and read it and say, wow, this is what is actually in here, instead of dancing around, instead of listening to some individuals who claim that Sharia law is only a dietary restriction, and actually sit down and read the Reliance of Travel and say, no, there's a lot more here. I'm not going to just take your word at it. I'm going to look into it myself. And that's why I have respect for anyone who, when we do call-ins, that just say, you know what, I need to read my sources. I need to go look this stuff up. I wanted to go do this research. And it's like, that is completely acceptable answer. Yeah. I love that answer. So
there you go, kids. It's there.
Yep.
Muhammad committed a sin worthy of death and condemnation, because shirk is an unforgivable sin in Islam, unless he was insane, like the passage says there.
Yeah, if she's insane, then you guys definitely shouldn't be following an insane person.
Again, another catch
about getting revelations.
Right. Poor Muhammad. What a mess. What a mess, I protest.
So Muhammad became a murtad. He apostatized at that point when he accepted the worship of the pagan deities, or the intercession of the pagan deities, and he bowed down in worship, and the pagans bowed down in worship with him, along with all the Muslims, and the narrations clearly teach that everyone there did. And there was a great celebration. And Muhammad was not aware of there being an interjection from the devil into his mouth to produce this result. Muhammad simply wanted something to reconcile. Well, it was the devil who reconciled him between the pagans and himself. It wasn't Allah, because later, supposedly, Muhammad was convicted either from Muslims telling him, hey, you're telling us to do something you called shirk before. And shirk within Islam, attributing partners to Allah, is one of the greatest sins you can commit that's unforgivable. So Muhammad committed this. He committed shirk. He told the pagans that their goddesses and their intercession was accepted. They bowed down together. They celebrated. And it wasn't until later that supposedly Jabril, the angel Gabriel, came back and rebuked him and said, "What have you done? You said a thing that I did not tell you to say." In all of the narrations concerning these satanic verses, there are over 50 primary source materials, which I have the list up here, clearly stating that Muhammad did this, that this is a fact of history concerning Muhammad, if the narrations are valid. As a Christian and having studied Islam historically and read the books and heard the scholars, I don't really believe that the majority of the Islamic narratives are true historical accounts. But it's their accounts. They believe it to be true. And therefore, we have to say, since you believe this to be true, let's follow your belief, your religion, your philosophy consistently. And according to Muhammad, he himself committed shirk, something Allah was supposed to protect him from. When his clot, his part of Satan was removed, that was supposed to have protected him from the influence of the devil. Apparently it didn't work, because Muhammad later, after his prophetic calling, was able to be influenced by the devil. Now, in order for Muhammad to feel justified, because he was depressed, he was very down, probably suicidal again, he received a second revelation to excuse him and give him comfort that, oh, don't worry about this, Muhammad, because all of the prophets before you have had this happen to them. It says that none have come before you, but that the Satan has thrown into their recitations or
Let's
their
go to that
narratives.
verse. I think it's 22. Let's see. Quran 22, where Muhammad is justified. Let's see. Where is it? 2250 something?
2250 something. I don't think that works on search criteria.
Let me get it. 2252. I was close. I was in the neighborhood. So 2252 is where Allah corrects or justifies Muhammad, but condemns all the other prophets.
2252.
And the scholars are pretty much unanimous about that. This is what was revealed to him after he gave the Satanic verses to try to comfort him.
So there we go. We got that up on the screen.
Yep. 2250. Let's see. Oops. Quran.
Now, just for the Christians that are out there, think how crazy this is. In the Bible, we have historical books that record quite a few of the actions, be good, ugly, brutal, and none of this is recorded as any other prophet doing something like this. That's been considered a prophet of God. You got false prophets come along, but a true prophet never did anything like this. Again, would have been executed for it. So it seems to have had a pretty big issue with it.
Yeah. So Quran 22:52 says, "Never did we send a messenger or a prophet before you, but when he did recite the revelation or narrated or spoke, Satan threw in, but Allah abolishes that which Satan throws in. Then Allah establishes his revelations, and Allah is all knower, all wise." I'll question that last part. Where's the wisdom in that? So here you go. Muhammad got a convenient revelation saying, don't worry, Mo. You're not the first. All of them before you have had the Satan throw something in them. So then is he telling us that all of the prophets before him maintained the mark of Satan in their hearts? They did not pray whatever prayers Muhammad said would protect you from Satan. They did not do the proper rituals that would protect them from Satan when they're given the word of God. Everything that would have protected them and made them infallible concerning akbar sins or major sins, great sins, none of the prophets were able to do.
Well, this would also apply to Jesus himself as well, because they claim that he is a prophet. So he's saying that
they didn't exclude
all the
anyone.
prophets.
Yeah.
So it can't have anything to do with that mark because Jesus wasn't even touched by the devil, as we've already established earlier on.
Well,
So-
so then we have a contradiction.
Yes.
Yeah. And here we have in the life of Muhammad again, where Jibril rebukes him and gives him that revelation. And he says, when the announcement of what Satan had put upon the prophet's tongue came from God, Quraysh said, Muhammad has repented of what he said about about the position of your gods. Let me start over. I'm a wreck. When the annulment of what Satan had put upon the prophet's tongue came from God, Quraysh said, Muhammad has repented of what he said about the position of your gods. With Allah alerted it and brought something else. Now those two words which Satan had put upon the apostle's tongue were in the mouth of every polytheist, and they became more violently hostile to the Muslims. So when Muhammad finally repented and said, oh, I'm taking that back, it just angered the pagans and said, wait a minute, you're turning back on what you just said.
Yeah,
It was a big deal.
You're stabbing us in the back here. What's going on?
Yeah. What happened with the Quranic?
So again, this verse really does have a lot of issues here with theology, with the Islamic theology, because you have God, Allah, who's supposed to be all-knowing, all-wise, right? So this is a known factor that Satan is known to do this. If Allah is truly all-knowing, then he knew that this was going to happen and that these words were going to be thrown into the mouth of the prophet. So either he failed in training his prophet correctly, which would have allowed the prophet to know what are the words of Allah and what aren't, or he failed in being able to protect him against this attack. And in so doing, that's a pretty bad issue, because you have Satan over here more powerful than Allah in this verse very clearly.
Yep. There you go.
So Muhammad conveniently got a revelation that said, you're not the only one. Everyone has this happen to them. But it's only a test. Well, what kind of a test is that? That Allah would allow his prophet, his best prophet, his example for humanity, to be influenced by the devil in such a way that contradicts earlier revelations, that he was protected. And then we take the account of the devil talking to Allah and having a discussion saying, because you allowed me to get kicked out of paradise, or you kicked me out of paradise, I'm going to go after all of your righteous followers. And Allah said, you're going to be able to, but you're not going to be able to do it to my righteous ones. So now we have a dilemma. Was Muhammad a righteous, devout slave of Allah? If he was, Satan shouldn't have been able to touch him. Since Satan did touch him, either Allah lied, made a mistake, a blunder, when he said he would protect his righteous followers, and specifically Muhammad, because Muhammad is exalted, even though, here's another contradiction, even though the Quran and Islamic literature teaches that there's no distinction between the prophets, Muhammad is put aside and made to be almost equal to Allah, and if not at times greater above Allah, because we're to follow, or the Muslims are to follow Muhammad as they follow Allah, and they're to emulate him in every practice. The Islamic material it's exhausted on the life of Muhammad. I have here with me 3 or 4 different biographies on Muhammad, from the earliest ones to some of the most respected ones, and all of them record the Satanic verses. They might give slight variations, but the core narrative is there. Muhammad was influenced by the devil to the point of committing shirk. He became a murtad, an apostate, which is punishable by death according to Islamic jurisprudence. The highest authorities in Islam, from the 4 major schools of thought, all agree that the person that commits shirk, if he is sane and apostatizes, should be killed. So the question is, was Muhammad sane? If he wasn't, then he would be excused, but he needs to make atonement for it. If he wasn't sane, why do we follow him as a prophet? If he was able to be so easily influenced. If Muhammad could not differentiate the revelations from Allah from those of the devil, when can we trust him? When can he trust that angel that's coming to him and giving him these revelations.
I think
Let me,
that is the
give
real
a-
key there. How can we trust him? Go ahead. What do you got?
I was just going to read Quran 4:48, where it says, "Verily, Allah forgives not that partners should be set up with him." And it says, in worship, in parentheses, for context by the Muslim scholars. "But he forgives except that, anything else, to whom he wills. And whoever sets up partners with Allah in worship, he has indeed invented a tremendous sin." Quran chapter 4, verse 48. Muhammad allowed the worship of the goddesses Alat, Al-Uzza, and Manat, the third, alongside of Allah with the pagans. Their intercession was to be hoped for, and that is a clear violation of what the Quran says is a tremendous sin. Akbar sin. Great. You don't get worse than this in Islam. Muhammad committed shirk. He apostatized. Find me a Muslim that will say if somebody commits shirk, they're still considered a Muslim.
Nope, still searching. I'm not very hopeful for that.
No.
Nope. And again, just pulling this back up. This wants to reload for me. There we go. Share this one instead. Right here, Reliance of the Traveler. Again, this is Sharia Law Handbook. And right here, 08.1 is where we're talking about, and it's very clear. Anyone that apostatizes, you are to be killed. Plain and simple. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about this. This is as clear cut as you can get.
Yep.
So he would have been under a death sentence then, according to this. So.
Yeah. Never mind Salman Rushdie. He didn't really deal with Islam per se. He just wrote that book that the title, it's not even a proper polemic against Islam. It's just a story with the satanic verses. Muhammad actually did apostatize and allow the worship of the pagan deities. What a mess. What a mess, I tell you.
It keeps on going on.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have the Muslim comments or the Muslim position that the Quran is the word of Allah. In what sense? We have an entire chapter dedicated to the devils, the jinn, where you have the narration of demons speaking. Are those narratives that the devils are speaking, where they're talking, is that the word of Allah? Can you truly, as a Muslim, say the entirety of the Quran is Allah's word? Because as Christians, we don't hold to the same apologetic as the Muslims. We don't view the Bible the same way that Muslims view the Quran. We don't view inspiration the same way that Muslims view inspiration. So a Muslim cannot turn around and throw these arguments back at us, since we do not have the same line of thinking, the same argumentation. And this is what Christians need to understand. When the Muslims try to turn things around on us, you have to remind them that we don't have the same foundation. We don't have the same way of doing apologetics, the same way of doing exegesis, the same way of interpretation. And coming to interpretation, again, I'll mention Nadir's debate with Matt Slick. He was mocking Matt Slick for interpretation. Well, I want to know how Nadir is going to interpret all of these narrations.
So yeah, just reminding guys, if you're dealing with Muslims, that's something that needs to be very clear, because definitions matter. They would say, well, the Quran is just like the Bible. We just believe in it the same way. No, you guys don't. You believe that the Quran is the direct word of God. We believe that the Bible is the inspired word of God. That's why the Bible can be translated and spread to every corner of the world.
Yep. In the chapter of the jinn, chapter 72 of the Quran, if you read it, it is a dialogue of demons. So when the Muslims want to say their concept of inspiration, their concept of the Quran being the word of Allah, such and so forth, let's take those places where the jinn are having conversations. Is that the word of Allah? Point a Muslim to those verses and say, is this Allah's word? Because it's a demon talking.
Yeah.
And now they're going to have to explain something they probably never thought about. What do we really mean by the Quran is the word of Allah? In what sense? They're going to have to reevaluate their position of claiming that the entirety of the Quran is the word of Allah, because you have demons being quoted. It's a mess.
Again, if you look
Chapter
at
72.
comparing that to the Bible, you see in the Bible we have historical books where it's reporting what people said.
Right.
So you could have someone in the Bible say, "Oh, my son is dead," and then his son's not really dead once they go and find out. That's not a contradiction. That's just reporting on what the person said. He might have believed that his son was dead at the point, but the reality was it wasn't. But he reported,
Right.
It's just a report.
Yeah,
So-
we have a lot of genres of literature in the Bible. We have poetry, history, we have wisdom literature, we have apocalyptic literature, we have all kinds of genres, and one must take into consideration these things when reading the Bible, and not say, well, Judas said this, therefore that's the word of God, and God is the one saying it because the Bible is the word of God. It's like, no, we don't hold to that. But the Muslims have to give an explanation for their concept of the word of Allah. I need to plug in because I'm about to.
That
die.
and while you're doing that, it POV matters. Point of view. Who is the one talking? Who is the one engaging? In the Quran, according to the Muslim narrative of this is the direct words of Allah, everything in there is what Allah is saying. So if it says the sun sets in a spring of muddy water, it means a sunset in a muddy pool of water.
Right, because in that one, the context is clear that it's Allah narrating it to Muhammad. It's not Muhammad making the assumption or Zulkarnain. It's Allah saying, this is what Zulkarnain saw.
It would have been easy for Muhammad to have fixed that, because all he would have had to do is he found where it appeared the sun set in a spring of muddy water. Boom, done. That was in the end of it, because it's appeared. So it's a perspective change.
Right.
But no, it's literal.
So many problems with the muddy water, the sun. So
because
come on.
he does not like people.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, knock it off already. Drop Islam. Come to Christ. The water's fine over here. It really is. There's no issues.
Interpreting what's there, and I have quotes from the Muslim scholars that say that when you try to take something and turn it into a metaphor or something other than what the clear context is teaching, you're erring. So they want you to simply take what's there, take the narrative and leave it alone. Don't do any innovation, don't manipulate it, don't interpolate, simply take it for what it says. And what the narrative says within the context of Islam, of the Quran, of the scholars, is that Muhammad was demonically influenced. And what was the product of that? Muhammad was led to a life of debauchery. Muhammad was led to a life of sin, a life of rebellion, a life of contradiction, a life of absurdities. All of the things we have concerning Muhammad that give us his biography, his life and conduct. He broke all 10 of the commandments. In fact, there's narrations that clearly teach that Muhammad commanded the breaking of all the 10 commandments. The Quran says that it comes after the revelations of the previous prophets. But when we look at these other prophets that we have in the Bible, because the Quran doesn't just stay with the Bible or the Christian and Jewish writings, it goes into other writings, Muhammad contradicted them. Wherever the narratives for the Quran came from, it wasn't from a true angel of God, and it wasn't from God. It was from a demon. Muhammad engaged in sexual immorality. He engaged in violence to the point of clear contradiction to what we see within the biblical narratives. We can explain as Christians clearly the wars in the Bible, the times that there was physical force necessary. We don't have as Christians a mandate to engage in warfare, to engage in physical altercations. What we have in the Bible is a mandate to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ, which is the way of salvation. Only in Jesus Christ, the true living God incarnate, can you find true peace. Muhammad did not have peace. Muhammad was always going through the suicidal tendencies. It says that through his entire span. In fact, Muhammad was Muhammad's end. Let's go there. This time runs short. Muhammad was told by Allah, if you say something that we have not spoken, I will take you by your hand, and I will sever your aorta, which is your life artery that goes to the heart. Now, here's what we have to ask. How did Muhammad die? Well, according to Islamic history, Muhammad died by being poisoned and having a years-long suffering because of the poisoning, to where on his deathbed, he was shouting in agony to his wife that he felt as though his aorta was being severed. And then we got to say, well, if Allah is not the true God, how could he have predicted that that's how he would kill Muhammad? Well, we have to look at how the true and the living God works. At times, always he has the last laugh. And with Muhammad, he certainly did. Because he allowed Muhammad to die the very death Muhammad said would be the death of a false prophet. Someone that was influenced by demons. He introduced a demonic religion.
Is it buffering? Can you hear that?
I do not. In chat, let me know if there's any buffering going on. Let me know if there's any hiccups.
Everything's coming out kind of robotic for me on my side.
I know the audio, there's definitely echoing going on. Let's go ahead and wrap up your statements here, and then you can add on whatever you need. I do need to check something real quick at that point, and then I'll be right back.
For 1,400 years has brought nothing but pain and suffering to the world, and all we can do is take their narrations and let them examine them. Go ahead.
So there we go. Do you want to add anything to that or bring up any of the sources?
No, I think we covered everything else here and there. So I think we referenced everything. Unless you caught something I didn't reference.
No, I think we have hit everything on the head. So now we got to go into the funner part.
1 minute left here. I'm good. I can close with that.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we will bring up Nadir. Okay, you have 20 minutes, and then make sure you take you paid attention to the screen, so we let you know when there's 3 minutes, 1 minute, and time's up. You're all set.
Well, thank you so much for that, Louis, for all those fabrications. So a lot of what Louis said is fabrications. He's just making stuff up. Listen, let me explain to Louis how debates are supposed to work. When you cite that this thing actually happened, you should show the reference, like what I will do tonight. And you should say, look, right there in your book, it says this. Now, I try to keep track. Not everything what he says was a fabrication. A lot of it was just his wacky, quacky interpretations. But now what we have here, what's complicated about this debate is what is true from what Louis is saying and what is stuff which he is just making up. But in reality, I don't think he's making it up. I think he's just going to like anti-Islamic websites. He didn't do his own personal research to find out if these things are really true or not. So I think that's basically what's happening. But here's a list of some of the fabrications. He said he died from his aorta being cut. This is nonsense. There's no reference for that.
No reference for that.
Nope. Zip.
Nope.
Zilch.
Nope. Sahih al-Bukhari doesn't exist. Or you have just manufactured Sahih al-Bukhari. That's what you've done.
Yeah. Innovator.
Couldn't differentiate between a satanic verse or a one from God. Satan removed his heart. I mean, the list goes on of all this nonsense and fabrications which do not exist in our text, which, I don't know what to do at this point. Just tell him, stop making stuff up.
Yeah, stop making stuff up. How dare you,
To bluff. Huh? So you're probably playing cards, and he cheated.
Liar! Liar! Liar!
Get back, witch!
That's so funny.
Again, we've gone through the sources. We've shown that each of those, yes, are in the sources. They're Sahih, they are reliable, or they are from Muslims, scholars themselves. Again, I do want to remind you guys that this is his opening. This is where he is supposed to be, according to the debate format, giving his arguments, not replying, giving his arguments.
Yeah.
A lot of times with Muslims, they do require that basically there aren't strictly followed guidelines to that format, but it's not what you're supposed to do. So let's see what his bulletproof evidence is that Muhammad was not demon possessed and was not suffering from any sort of medical condition at all. He goes a bit more vague on that.
Okay, so anyway, this is really one of my most favorite topics. And like I
Just a reference, he says that on every topic. Ever. He said that on slavery. He says that on any of the scientific miracles. This is my favorite. This is my favorite topic. I don't know if you guys ever played any sort of video games very much, but there's one Mass Effect. Then one of the Mass Effects, you go into a store and they're like, we'll give you a 10% discount if you endorse our store. Well, every store does that. So you can literally go down and they'd autoplay your response all the way down as you go into each one of these stores. This is my store, and this is my favorite store on this planet. Come by from here. And you just hear that over and over again. That's what I hear when it hears like, this is my favorite topic. This is my favorite topic. Dude, you're a broken record. Please be honest. Be open and honest with this. Don't try to lie to us just at the beginning.
said, when we quote references, you should share your desktop, show what you're quoting so we can see and make sure that these are really authentic and really exist. So, yeah. So like I said, this kind of goes back to 30 years ago when I was a student as a religious studies major. I made an amazing discovery, actually. And what I discovered was, I was looking at my religious studies textbook, and what I discovered was these religions can't all be true.
No duh.
Yeah.
That's what Christianity and both Islam have agreed on for quite some
Well,
time.
unfortunately for Nadir, Muhammad at one point said that the closest in religion to the Muslims were the Christians. So he has to deal with that.
There's no way you can have over 100 different messiahs, dozens and dozens different prophets. You can't have like a holy trinity and the monkey god Hanuman from the Hindu religion be inducted in the holy trinity. All these religions are contradicting each other. There can only be one true religion or none. You can't have two.
No, well, hold on. They're one true religion. That's what he's saying. I agree with that. But the question is, which one? And from what we're seeing, Muhammad didn't have the one true religion.
Nope, I haven't heard any good case yet. Just fundamentals on one of these religions must be true. They all contradict each other, which again, every Bible-believing Christian would agree with those concepts. So he's not really making a point yet on the topic.
What I've come to the conclusion, and this is what I'll base the entire premise on, there's a lot more alleged demon-possessed prophets. And pretty much everybody in that book is a demon-possessed prophet, is a false prophet. I couldn't really say that at that time back in the 90s because they believed that all religions are true and everyone has their own special truth. So I just kept my mouth shut, but thank you, Louis, for giving me this opportunity where I can voice my opinion. And so it's a very tough pill to swallow that, that everybody is a demon-possessed prophet, except one or none. So
except one. So only one. Now, that criteria there actually really messes him up because according to that, there can only be one true prophet that wasn't demon-possessed. All the other prophets, even in Islam itself, are possessed.
Yeah.
Because it has to be one or none.
Right. So the Muslim then would have to go to a so-called prophet after Muhammad that didn't get demon-possessed. And that would have to be his new last prophet. If all of them were demon-possessed, and supposedly Allah's righteous ones cannot be possessed, cannot be influenced by the devil, then he really made a mess of things. He destroyed his own religion, his own foundation. Wow, what a mess.
Even if he was able to win this debate and say, okay, yeah, Muhammad was not demon possessed by his logic he just put out, though.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus would have been demon possessed, would have been false prophet before them. So he's calling the word of Allah a false prophet. He is calling Moses a false prophet. He's calling all the other ones in the Quran false prophets, and in so doing, calling the Quran false.
Yep.
The cascade effect on him, and it is horrendous.
I want to share so if you can go with me along with it, and I think Louis will go along with me on that, there can only be one truth. We can now
through the tulips with Nadir.
No, I do not agree with the original statement that there's only one prophet that is not demon possessed. I don't agree with that concept. I agree that there's only one true religion, yes, but not that there's only one true prophet.
Right. See, with Islam, it's like what Muhammad did by vilifying Judaism and Christianity ultimately is equal to the Christian condemning the Old Testament and saying, oh, that was all corrupted, we don't need it. And it's like, well, make sense of the New Testament without the Old Testament. All the types, all the prophecies, all of these context references and stuff. You couldn't. We have to go to the Old Testament to see the history. Christianity is the flower that budded out of Judaism. There was a purpose for what God did in the Old Testament, and it culminated with Christ. So we need to have the Old Testament. We can't just dismiss it, and so when Muhammad abrogated everything before him, and then there's obviously contradictions to that because there's times where he does appeal to them. So it's, again, this vicious cycle of contradictions with Islam. We accept it, we don't accept it. You're condemned, it's not condemned. It's shirk, it's not shirk. We will protect you, we don't protect you. You can drink, you can't drink. It's just absolute madness. No wonder the Muslims are so uptight and want to, pull the cord. You've been given such a fraud, such a lie concerning your religion. Come out of it, folks. Leave Islam, leave Muhammad. It's false. It's a mess. Come to Christ.
Start to build the profile of that demon-possessed prophet, and let's see what he looks like. So here we go. Can you? I'm sharing my desktop. Carmen, could you show that to the screen real quick? Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
I just want to point out this is a document he made. This is not something that he found. This is not something someone else created. This literally is a document he created himself for this sole purpose. Just pointing that part out there.
So this is a profile of the demon-possessed prophet. And what we're going to find is that they walk and talk very similar. Now, I only have like 6 examples here, but really this is a snapshot of over 100 demon-possessed prophets. We start with that premise. Now, I know some of you thinking here, what? Guru Nanak? Apostle Paul? They're on the list of the demon-possessed prophet? No, he's Guru Nanak. I understand people might feel offended. Let me explain to you why he's on the list. Because even though he did not call himself a prophet, and Apostle Paul didn't call himself a prophet, but in reality they are. They're claiming to receive a divine revelation.
Derek, can you remind me what this has to do with the debate topic?
Well, I think he's trying to create some sort of criteria for demon-possessed prophets that does not include Muhammad. The fact that he's got Joseph Smith up there as number 1, I laughed out loud when we did this. Unfortunately, I was actually at the doctor's. My son broke his collarbone the day this debate happened. So I was actually at the hospital, and the nurse looked at me weird when I laughed. the reason why Joseph Smith, if you look into how he got his original revelations, is almost a one-to-one with Muhammad.
Yeah. Well, one of the 6 official Mormon revelations, because there's 6 official first encounters with Joseph Smith. My favorite story with Mormonism is Shiz. Corey Altimer, I think, lopped off Shiz's head, and then Shiz pushed up and breathed his last. I don't know how they get this stuff, but Shiz and Corey Altimer. Boy,
so to put him as number 1 on this list is like, dude, you need to check your sources, because that would definitely include, if you're going to throw Joseph Smith as being, see, this is how he reacted to the angel in the story, is that of a demon-possessed prophet. Well,
yeah, and I mean, let's look at some of Muhammad's continual rantings about, I swear I'm not insane. I swear I'm not a prophet. It's like we said before, he thinks you protest too much, Mo.
Yeah, you do not have to. If you're saying it over and over again, you're saying it to convince yourself at a certain point more than the onlookers, because they've already heard you say this.
Yep. Quran 68:2. Thou art not by the grace of thy Lord mad or possessed, because he thought he was. We have 68:51. And the unbelievers would almost trip thee up with their eyes when they hear the message and they say, surely he is possessed. 69:41 through 42. It is not the word of a poet, meaning one of the demon-possessed ones. Little it is that ye believe. 69:42. Nor is it the word of a soothsayer. 81:22. And your companion is not one possessed. 81:25. Nor is it the word of an evil spirit accursed. I mean, over and over again, it's like this poor fella, just confused and suicidal and afraid of the jinns, afraid of the dark, afraid of eclipses, afraid of, it goes on and on.
So let's see this case he is building up. All the biblical references he uses, all the insightful passages, of course, from firsthand references, because he would never use anything that's not. He wouldn't try to use someone else's, what he would call
quacky interpretation.
So it's got to be from the original sources, right? Well, let's find out.
They've produced scriptures. From a practical point of view, Guru Nanak, Apostle Paul, they're all prophets. And why they're on the list?
Because you put them there.
Because he created this list. This is a Google Docs file.
Why are you asking us, Nadir? You put it there. Why are they on this list? Because you made the list.
This is your source. I can see your marker there to edit it. Right there.
That's funny.
If you wanted to, you could get rid of the demon-possessed prophet and could just say, the profile of the prophet. Boom, done.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Is because they fit the profile of the demon-possessed prophet. What can you see? And here on the top list are the demon-possessed prophets, and here are all the demon-possessed messiahs on the bottom. Again, I only have 6 over here, but this is a snapshot of over 100. I couldn't.
You're claiming over 100, but you only have 6. Okay, I understand that you're making a claim of this over 100. Can you show this? Again, I'm not this critical.
Now, I have books on false messiahs, and I have books on false prophets and such and so forth, because I've studied the cults and the occult. So I myself have a list of all these so-called prophets that have come down through the ages. Many of them claiming to be Muhammad, claiming to be the last prophet of Islam. Many of them claim to be the Messiah. Many of them claiming to be one of the prophets. So the fact that you have people claiming to be a prophet of God and putting the list together doesn't do anything to the argument. Muhammad himself said he was demon-possessed. Muhammad himself said he was troubled. Muhammad himself was suicidal. Muhammad himself was in fear, was troubled, committed shirk, became an apostate, a murtad. So don't blame us. This list that Nadir has put together has, I mean, I don't know how it in any way, shape, or form it deals with Muhammad's issues.
No, and I agree. These are false prophets. I was looking at the name Yahweh ben Yahweh. I'm actually familiar with that, thanks to vocab. But yeah, they are false prophets, sure. But you're making this grandiose
Tell
statement.
Alonzo to be quiet. Alonzo, knock it off, Alonzo. No, we're not. He doesn't love me. So move on.
Yeah, it doesn't. The main point is he was being critical on you for not sharing your sources. He was saying, this is how you do it in a debate. You show your sources. Okay, so far, the only source you said is a document you made without anything else. Now, again, I don't care. I'll take your word on it and look it up afterwards. But if you're going to be critical on someone for doing something, you definitely should make sure that you're doing it yourself.
Yeah. Let me really quickly grab one of those books and see what we got here.
Sure. Oh, so yeah, these are again, false prophets, false messiahs. Fine. Love that he's got to stretch that what qualifies as a prophet in order to fit the rest. Again, by his own criteria.
I think they're sandwiched underneath a bunch of other books, but anyways, I have here, heresies, the history of heresies, know the heretics, such and so forth. So I know what others have said down through the ages, coming up with different beliefs and professions of prophethood and such. It's nothing new, Nadir. You're not unique in your list and putting together something like that. Books have been written on it. So it doesn't deal with the issue that your Muhammad was a demoniac, that your Muhammad showed signs of physical maladies. He had a big hairy tumor, a malignant tumor. Oh, did I show you the hadith on the medical doctor offering to remove Muhammad's seal of prophethood? I don't think I did. Let me pull that up. And because there was a medical doctor that told Muhammad, hey, Mo, that thing's malignant. You got issues. Let me deal with it. And Muhammad said, no.
You mean the person who brought such scientific and medical knowledge to the world for the very first time didn't believe a doctor when he said that's cancerous?
Right. Sunan Abu Dawud, book 33, number 4195. Sunan Abu Dawud, books 33, number 4195. Narrated Abu Rimfa. This version adds to the previous hadith, number 4194, my father said to him, to the prophet, show me what is on your back, for I am a physician. He, the prophet, said, you are only a soother. Its physician is he who has created it. So Allah is the physician of the mole, of the holy moly. And then we have another narration that says, Sunan Abu Dawud, is that the same one? Let's see. Nope, different one. See, multiple references. Oh, maybe. Hang on, kids. 4195. Okay, that's the same one. I think this one's different. I came to God's messenger with my father. This is from the Mishkat al-Masabi. I have that right there. I think it's a 2-volume one that I have. I came to God's messenger with my father, and on his asking who this was along with him, he replied, he is my son. Be witness to the fact, he said, he will not bring evil upon you, nor will you bring evil on him. Abu Dawud and Nisai transmitted it. This is explained as meaning that neither will be punished for the wrong done by the other. Let me just get to the meat. Okay, he said, I went in with my father to see God's messenger, and when my father saw what was on God's messenger's back, he said, let me treat what is on your back, for I am a physician. He replied, you are the helper, but God is the physician, i.e., you act in a Gentile manner, giving help and advice, but God can cure. So there you go, Nadir. You are upset that we want to do only spiritual exorcisms on people with symptoms of epilepsy. But here we have a medical doctor, a physician, offering his services to remove a malignant tumor from Muhammad's back. And Muhammad said, no, you're just one of these, you are a helper, but God is the physician. He rejected medical help. How do you deal with that? Again, the Mishkat al-Masabi, 3471, and in book reference, book 16, hadith 22. It's there, kids. It is there. We're not making this up. Nadir needs to study his own religion a little bit more in depth.
Well, maybe
Now, can you imagine the hard, how much trouble would have been saved had that doctor, taken that tumor off and no more seal of prophethood, no messenger of Allah, 1400 years of heartache, of wars, of slavery, of mutilations, of abominations. I mean, the world would be a whole different place. It wouldn't be kumbaya, but it would certainly be a lot better. Do this, kids, when you get a chance, look up the 1040 window. 1040 window is the, if you look on a map and you have the YX, axis for the degrees, 1040. That window on the map will show you the Islamic world for the most part. Everything within the 1040 window is about 90% Muslim. And most of the wars in the world, most of the illiteracy, medical issues, poverty, suffering, conflicts are in this 1040 window. What did Muhammad do to his people? It's sad, because it is a terrible thing to look at what the Muslims always want to say. The Muslim Ummah and the Muslim community and the establishing Sharia and all this. Go to the 1040 window and look at the statistics about all of these things I mentioned. The literacy rate, the hospitals, the education, the wars, the diseases, the all of these things. The 1040 window is a mess, and it is the primary place where Islam thrives. Go figure.
Big surprise. After all, the leaders in science have always been Muslims. That's the ones that they're the first ones on the moon.
Sure.
I was talking to someone not too long ago that was claiming to be Neil Armstrong coming back from the moon. He says, yeah, I converted to Islam right afterwards. I'm like, dude, you're dead. You've been dead for years. Malarkey.
Yeah.
Let's see if this claim from Nadir gets any better.
Claiming to receive a divine revelation, and they've produced scriptures. From a practical point of view, Guru Nanak, Apostle Paul, they're all prophets. And why they are on the list is because they fit the profile of that demon-possessed prophet. What can you see? And here on the top list are the demon-possessed prophets, and here are all the demon-possessed messiahs on the bottom. Again, I only have 6 over here, but this is a snapshot of over 100. I couldn't fit all those people on here. So here is what we know. Here's what we now know about the demon-possessed.
Scrolling, Nadir. You could have put them all on there and just scroll down.
And that would have been very impressive.
Into one page. They didn't have to all be crammed into one page. You could have listed them and then just scrolled.
And then that would have been really like you kept scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and be like, look at all this research I put into you.
Knitting.
But
that comes from Pee Wee Herman, by the way.
Prophet. They don't question the revelation which comes to them. They immediately accept it. Listen to what Joseph Smith says when the reaction of the revelation is given in yellow. Listen to what he says. I knew it.
That is the account that's like Muhammad's, actually, where he just replaced, and that's what he's quoting. I was just looking at that.
Yeah, it's too fuzzy for me to read.
Vision. Yeah, so he's quoting the reaction is, now it doesn't have it in here, but earlier on, it's happening in the woods because he would go there to seek God, and then he had these two angels appear to him. And then
Well,
they
there is
said,
an affidavit that says it's got court I think it's got the stamp of the court of a witness to Muhammad, who's quoting Muhammad saying, "I will be the second Muhammad to my enemies." Basically, he would slaughter his enemies like Muhammad, and that's Joseph Smith saying that. And he was violent early on. He had the doctrine of blood atonement in Mormon doctrines. There were some sins for which the blood of Christ cannot atone for, so your own blood must be shed. And they were more than happy to help you. They had their throat slitters that would help you along with atoning for your certain sins and cutting your throat from ear to ear. And that was one of their doctrines. They were polygamists like Muhammad. Muhammad retreated to the woods in upstate New York, and Muhammad went to a cave. Both of them had a vision. Now then comes into question with Joseph Smith concerning the white salamander. There's some debate about, was it a giant white salamander that appeared to him? So it's the parallels are there. The only thing is, Mormonism was very violent early on. Joseph Smith actually started his own army, tried to print his own money, and try to overthrow the U.S. government. But then they became very, very soft, so that now the Mormons are they're on the extreme of emotionalism. So if you're talking to a Mormon and you're saying anti-Mormon stuff, they'll get teary-eyed, these little 16-year-old elders and stuff, whereas the Muslims get extremely violent. So they've got to the polar opposites. But a lot of the stuff is very similar. So it's kind of creepy.
I think we've got a heresy growing in our comment section there.
Heresy, burn them at the stake.
Really, we have to talk.
Who's
Star Trek is also similar to.
Hey, I'm a Trekkie.
Star Wars is also similar to Star Trek. Yes, you see, they have "star" in their name, therefore they are the exact same thing.
Baby.
I knew it. That God knew it. I could not deny it. So when this beam of light came to him, they don't question it. Remember what Louis was saying. He said he thought, could this be demons? Point number one. Not because there was something evil about the angel who visited him. So that should refute what he says right there. Because it's something supernatural. He felt allegedly suicidal. Now, these are references which people say.
Okay, first of all, the demon was choking him.
Yeah.
It wasn't there wasn't anything evil about choking. Okay, well, okay, Nadir.
Give him a bear hug.
Choking people, there's nothing wrong with it, according to you. Okay, well, that's an issue.
They are weak hadith, actually fabricated, but that's okay, no problem. I like it. But I have to warn you, they're not really authentic reference.
All the narrations make it clear Muhammad thought he was possessed by a jinn. Why? If it's a good jinn that's possessing him, why is he freaking out? Why is he running in terror? Why is his artery trembling? It says his neck was like his adrenaline was running. He was a mess. That doesn't come from someone that thinks their experience with this angelic being was not a big deal. Muhammad's own reaction to the being tells us he thought it was something negative, really bad. Run to mama, get covered up, and get their consolation to tell you that you're okay. There's nothing wrong. So come on, Nadir, knock it off.
Says, why do I like it? Because that's not the characteristic of a demon-possessed prophet. What do you see here on your screen? They all lovingly accept and do not question. There's no pushback on the so-called revelation that they are supposedly receiving. Blind acceptance without question. Of course. Let's look at this demon-possessed prophet, Apostle Paul. This is the funniest one. So he's supposed to be a persecutor of Christians. And then supposedly Jesus appears to him. Who are you, Lord? You give me, what do you mean? Who are you, Lord? You're supposed to be like, hey, I hated you. Or you're supposed to like, who are you? Why are you immediately affirming he's Lord? He's making the same dumb mistake Joseph Smith is making. let's look at Guru Nanak, his revelation. He says, as soon as the Lord, God appeared to him, he was so filled with love for what he Guru that he's saying the following verses. So here we could.
Okay, those are actually not anywhere near the same reactions. Just pointing that out, your yellow sections, although you've made this document yourself, those are not the reactions. We're looking at Saul here. His response was out of fear. He just got hit off his horse on the road to Damascus. He's down on the ground. There's a big shiny thing above him, some shiny angelic being above him. He's terrified, and his reaction is, "Who are you?" I mean, that's a human reaction. That's not a reaction of someone who already knew this beforehand. And the Lord, okay, it's an angelic being of some sort. So, of course, I'd want to address who this is. Definitely because it's not fitting in the theology that he knows. So this is something alien to him that's hitting him.
Oh, and then you have Jesus replying, "I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting. Now get up and go into the city." He revealed himself to him who he was. Muhammad Jibril didn't do that. Muhammad's Jibril let him run off in fear and terror. Should have explained to him who you were, Jibril.
So
Instead,
if we go back to Joseph Smith's reaction, I knew it. And I knew that God knew it. And I could not deny it. Okay, that's not the same reaction as, he's not asking, "Who are you, Lord?" He's saying, "I knew it, and God knew it, and I couldn't deny it." Okay. Not the same. Although Nadir's trying to make a parallel here, I think that this just really shows that there is not any. And then we go on to the last one here, and he's talking about being so filled with love for this deity. And it's like, okay, Paul was terrified. Joseph Smith just knew knowledge. And the last one here loves him, and these are supposed to be the same sort of characteristics of some demon-possessed individual. And none of these seem to be so, at least as far as being similar to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, all we have to look at is how each of them reacted, what was the outcome, and it's a night and day. Just completely different situations.
Now, he said supposedly Saul was a persecutor of the church, executing Christians, supposedly. I would request from him any documentation that says otherwise. Because it literally makes no sense why you would make up a story of someone who persecuted the church, who's got riches, deciding to, unless you're making up like centuries afterwards. If they're trying to make this up on the spot within the first couple of centuries, you would get fact-checked pretty quickly by the Jews that are persecuting you. Because it'd be like, no, the Saul guy never existed, or he's some minor dude that's in the middle of nowhere. You would get fact-checked pretty quick on that.
Yeah, not to mention, not to forget that all these cults and occult leaders that have come after Christ have tried to emulate him, tried to copy and plagiarize. We see tons of that with Joseph Smith in his writings, where he's saying things that are very similar to what the Bible says, stories, narratives that are very similar because he wants to borrow them and tweak them and make them his own. Same thing with Muhammad. He borrowed from the pagan writings, he borrowed from the Jews, from the Christians. And so to find superficial similarities does not imply a common origin. That's just dumb to do that. We would expect these guys that appeal to the Bible for their religion in one way or another would have some overlap because they're appealing to it. Over and over again, the Quran appeals to the Bible, to the writings of the Jews and the Christians. Over and over again, Joseph Smith appeals to the Bible, to the writings of the Jews and the Christians. So to see some superficial similarities and conclude from that, oh, there you go. See, same reactions, same. He's trying to be another Messiah. He's trying to be another messenger, another prophet. So of course he's going to take the narratives and give them his own spin for his own benefit. So that doesn't surprise anyone.
And I guess another indication here. Now, I'm not too familiar with the last one there, the Hindu character there. I'm not familiar with his story necessarily, but comparing Joseph Smith to Paul was destitute all of his life. He is working as much as he could just to make ends meet while going through this ministry. His main focus was the ministry, not personal financial development, where you see Joseph Smith, on the other hand, got pretty financially well endowed at the end.
Well, he was a money grubber. He used to do gold digging. He used to do the divining rods and trick people. And there's court documents of him defrauding people and finding wells and water and such and so forth. He was a scammer.
So you can see their personal wealth. You see some of the false messiahs they had down below. But again, each one of them pursued personal wealth. Again, I can't address this third guy on the list there. So yeah, personal wealth, personal development. Muhammad had the same course where he accumulated personal wealth, personal power, and many, many women. More than others could have. Again, something that he would have in common with Joseph Smith there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just, and then not only that, from Joseph Smith down the line up to, I got the dates here, I don't remember where, Mormons did not like Christianity. They did not appreciate the Christian faith. They condemned it, they vilified it. I have all the quotes from them, and they called Christianity a demonic lie. They don't identify as Christians. It wasn't until later where they realized, oh man, we better do something here, start identifying as Christians, so call ourselves, as Christians. And because Joseph Smith made it very clear, he did not think that the Christian churches were of God. They had gone apostate. They had all gone in error, into error. So he came to restore, not to correct or supplement, but to restore the gospel. It's another testament of Jesus Christ, according to them.
See a pattern emerging. Muhammad's
No, I
name is
don't.
not on this list
because you didn't add it. Just pointing that fact out again. If this was from some other scholarly source that, oh look, see this scholar here or this source here. See, they didn't include Muhammad in this, but they played all these, and this was their criteria for it, and this is what they used to do it. Okay, that would be interesting. That would be something to pay attention to. But to make up a piece of paper and say, see, Muhammad's not on this list. It's like, because you didn't add it. You also told me this is out of a list of hundreds. So there's a lot more here that you didn't add either that aren't on this list. So how do I not know that Muhammad's not one of those other people that you just didn't add to your document?
doesn't fit the profile of that demon-possessed prophet. But let's go along with the whole suicidal thing. Okay, wonderful. That's exactly what we want to find. That you're troubled. What is this angel that's coming to you? Oh my God, why are you harassing me? Please leave me alone. That's exactly the type of discerning, rational type of response that is we don't find in those hundreds of prophets. That's why he's not on the list. All of what you have described, actually, what Louis has described, doesn't fit the profile of the demon-possessed prophet. So actually, Lewis's presentation has backfired upon him. He has shown how Muhammad is unique. Now, I want to talk about this satanic verses which he was quoting, because this is really the death blow for his case.
Before he continues that on, though, he did just establish what was the deal with Muhammad. He would have had to be possessed because obviously he was in right mind, according to him. Because if you have an angel appear before you, you should not ask them who they are. You should definitely not act like Moses did at the burning bush. Who should I say sent me? Oh, Yahweh. Okay, let's go with that. You shouldn't act like all the other ones, you shouldn't act like, who is it? One of the, man, now the name escapes me. He's one of the judges that goes up and is confronted by the angel of the Lord and says, I'm going to burn an offering to you here. You shouldn't act like Mary, mother of Jesus, there either. You should absolutely be choked. If you're not choked by your angel, then you are a false prophet. If they're not trying to kill you, then you are a false prophet. After all, that we know that's what angels do all the time when they pop into true prophets, is they choke. In fact, we only have one evidence of this ever occurring.
Yep. Yeah, and I've gone to the websites, like I said, that Nadir has gone to, that he pulled up and stuff. And all you got to do is search in the Muslim websites, signs of epilepsy, signs of demonic activity, and you're going to see that the Muslim scholars make it very clear that there's an overlap between the symptoms of epilepsy and the symptoms of demonic activity. So their own scholars believe that, and they give you the references. I've got the printouts. Like, this is from Islam Question and Answer, Jinn Possession from an Islamic Perspective. I downloaded several articles from their websites and other websites concerning demonic activity, the signs of epilepsy, and across the board, they all make it very clear that yes, some of the symptoms, in fact, some of them make it very clear epilepsy is a sign of demonic activity. So Muhammad or Nadir is just very wrong that this is something I'm making up. It's there. They believe that. He's a religious scholar unto himself. I don't know what authorities he wants to cite that will back him up.
Well, so far, he cited himself as his chief evidence. So let's see, maybe this gets better. Maybe he pulls up the website. Let's find out.
Okay, now again, these are not authentic references, but it's okay, no problem.
These are not authentic references. So you're using this as your source, but these are not true sources. These are not authentic. They're not real. That's an issue.
Yeah.
If you're making a claim saying, hey, they said this, but I don't know if they actually said this, but that's your whole foundation for your argument, you have a problem.
Yeah, they're undermining their entire history, their entire foundation. If these narrations are not valid, if they're not true, if they're not according to credible witnesses, then you don't have Islam. Like I said, the majority of my references go to the early centuries of Islam, first, second, third at the most, some of them a little later, but the majority of them are first, second century references. The book Before Orthodoxy deals with first, second century references and nothing else. He's dealing with 50 respected references to Muslim narrations that Muhammad spoke the satanic verses. So if that's not credible, what is? If you can't trust those that were there at the time and gave you the account and the ones they handed it down to, then what do you have? You've lost your isnad. You have lost your chain of narration. You have a huge gap in your foundation.
He wants us to accept this as references. I mean, as authentic. It can be very easily refuted by simply pointing, and I can assure you, he has never read the story. He has never read it from its original source.
Nope.
The scholar Jalalain, if you look at my reference on my screen right now, he points out a very important point here. He says, whatever happened about, this is supposedly he was in prayer and then Satan threw some words on his mouth. Listen to what Jalalain says here.
Let's hear it.
It was without the prophet being aware of it. He didn't know what was going on.
Oh, wait, hold it.
So the whole argument.
There's no denial that there is no denial of it happening, right?
Nope.
It's just because some of the narrations say that Muhammad was sleepy when he did it. So he was groggy and he just kind of was out of it. And then the Satan was able to manipulate him. Him not being aware of it doesn't excuse him for saying it and doing it. Especially when Allah comes back or Jibril comes back and tells him, read to me what you said earlier. And he reads it exactly the same way that he did when it first was given to him. And then Jibril says, whoa, I didn't give you that. So even after Jibril comes back, Muhammad still thinks it's part of the Quran.
So yeah, this is Nadir shifting the goalposts here. It's no longer did Muhammad say it, because his source right here that he's using says, "Oh yeah, he did. He just didn't know he said it."
Right.
Muslims in the chat, I actually want to hear from you. If someone was to commit shirk without knowing it's shirk for some weird reason, would that still be shirk? I'm pretty sure the answer is yes.
Yeah. Now, they do have their books of law and their books of sins and such and so forth. And there are times where ignorance excuses someone. But remember what we read earlier, someone who is sane that apostatizes must be killed. Shirk is no small thing. Not only that, Muhammad was saying it as he was reading the Quran, as he was reading it to the Muslims, in the ears of the pagans, while Jibril was standing there, because it's Jibril who was showing it to him.
Yeah, and according to Nadir, again, he reinforced that earlier on and pointed it out. Muhammad was sane. Absolutely.
Falls to pieces right here. Okay, but let's go along with this to show you how this is destroying his argument. If Muhammad was a demon-possessed prophet, then what is Satan doing, throwing revelations in his mouth? So the whole thing is from Satan. The whole Quran and all of Islam is from Satan. So what's this whole episode? It's nonsense. It doesn't make sense. You're taking stories and narrations from our Islamic references and trying to spin a demonic spin on it. It doesn't work. There's only one way you can intelligently read it, and that he is a true prophet of God. He is a true prophet of God, and thus Satan tried to do some kind of attack upon him. And
I'll give you another intelligent way of interpreting that very easily. Muhammad felt homesick. He wanted to be reunited with his family. He gave this verse in order to reunite him with the pagans around him. It felt good for a while. It felt fantastic. He's getting paraded around. Good. And then the Muslims who started following him originally looked at him and said, "Hey, why are we worshiping other gods here? You said originally only one God." So they confronted him about this, saying, "Hey, this seems to be false." At that point, Muhammad said, I got caught with my pants down. Oh, shoot. Yep. I can't just rely on abrogation to wipe this entire thing out. I need something more. And that's when he made up the
That's when
revelation.
Surah 22 comes down and justifies him.
Yep.
Now, if you do me a favor, go to do a search, Infallibility of the Prophets, and there's going to be a website that pops up. It's called, and I think it's the second one. It's got a green circle for the website with Arabic.
Infallibility of the Prophets.
Prophets Infallible is the heading.
Prophets Infallible.
Islam question and answer.
Okay. There's actually a PDF of a book that's named that. You said, what's the website name?
It's called Islam Q&A. QA.
Islam QA. Okay.
Yeah. So there, if we go, because this is one of the articles I had downloaded, and I'll go down to the meat of it, probably where it says someone's asking the question. And I think a lot of these websites make up their own questions and then give the answers because they look very suspicious sometimes. Our Prophets Infallible, according to Islam Q&A, and this is one of the sites Nadir goes to later, or unless he already did. It's and here's what they say very clearly. The prophets, the prophets were infallible in conveying the message of Allah. They did not conceal anything that Allah had revealed to them, and they did not add anything from themselves. Allah said to his prophet Muhammad, and then he quotes, "O messenger, proclaim," and then the message is the implication, "what has been sent down to you from your Lord, and if you do not, then you have not conveyed his message. Allah will protect you from mankind." Well, why didn't he protect him from the devil? So here you have this Islamic website making it clear that concerning the prophet, the giving the message of Allah, reciting the Quran, the prophets would not blow it. But Muhammad did blow it in reciting the Quran. So where's his infallibility as a prophet? And like I said, there are many websites that'll deal with this. Shiite, Sunni, you name it, they have some differences here and there. But again, they're the ones putting this information out. That's where I'm going to get it. And that's what I'm throwing back at them. Why did Muhammad commit shirk in the recitation of the Quran when your own scholars are saying that cannot happen? They end up saying, well, Muhammad, the prophets could commit minor sins. That's some of them. Others will say they cannot commit any sins, but they can commit minor errors. But none of them can commit akbar sins or commit shirk. Well, Muhammad did. You guys are in trouble. It's a mess. You can't pull this stuff back. It's on the internet. It's downloaded. We have it. You said it. We're quoting it.
Yeah, it's plain and simple there. And again, we're not known to make our websites name that, so that's not ours.
Yeah.
We as Christians don't claim that one.
Only intelligent way. And another point, go back to our profile. This is a snapshot of over 100 different prophets and messiahs. That does.
You keep making that claim.
Still on this chart.
Well, he keeps making the claim that this is over 100 false prophets, demon-possessed prophets. That really makes me question.
Well,
you shouldn't have to reinforce it every 5 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not mad. I'm not possessed. I'm not demon possessed. Keep saying it.
We know Satan doesn't do that to his prophets. We know that. Their immediate acceptance. Let's go back to the demon-possessed prophet Joseph Smith. I knew it. I knew that God knew it. And I could not deny it. There's no, all of what you've cited doesn't happen to demon-possessed prophets. So that actually has backfired upon him. It just doesn't fit the profile. And then finally, he has only quoted a small part of the story. He forgot the part of the angel appearing. So this is a story of both the devil and the angel. The angel then appears and consoles Muhammad, and he says, basically, that's okay. Whatever Satan tries to throw in.
Here, don't lie. He did not say it's okay. He rebuked him. He said, "What have you done?" Oh, Nadir.
See, that's just Nadir's
wacky, quacky interpretation. Wacky, quacky interpretation.
Here.
God. And
oh, go ahead.
Here's all the references on the Satanic verses. Jibril corrected him. Jibril corrected him. Jibril corrected him. Keep going. Jibril, let's see. He has become a partner with Allah. Jibril, Satan, Jibril, Satan, cast Muhammad apologist. So it's time after time we see that Jibril corrected him, asked him, "What have you done?" These are in the narrations of the book Before Orthodoxy. These are all, and it's a great book. Like I said, the author did a great job of just compiling all these sources. They're difficult to find sometimes, but he did it, and they're all there. And this is a printout that has them all just listed to make it easier for reference. So, no, Nadir, he did not say it's okay. He got a rebuke and got told that he spoke a thing that was not of Allah. Liar!
I want to get you the actual reference in front of you. Please hit pause on your YouTube so you can just kind of read it yourself. I can't go over it real quick.
So this is Life of Muhammad. Again, this is the one that you brought up earlier. He is appealing to it right here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the books I went to, Nadir. What are you doing? You dare not go to the books I printed. How'd you get a copy of my book, Nadir?
It says whatever Satan throws in, God will abolish by sending angels and revelations. And
only after it had been announced and everyone heard it, only then would God act. God definitely wouldn't act beforehand in order to protect anyone.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Souls him. So he said you should accept this as authentic. Okay, do you want us to accept that the angel basically came to Muhammad as well? All righty, if that's what you want us to accept. You see, he only quoted half the story, but if you want us to accept it, then this has backfired upon him, because of the whole moral of the story is this: listen, don't worry about Muhammad. Human beings can, of course, are not infallible. This is a religion which is protected by God, and angels will come and descend and protect any kind of satanic intervention. So this is, God is in control. If you've ever seen those t-shirts, that's exactly the moral of the story. And Louis said, you want us to accept this as authentic. Okay. All right, no problem.
Nadir, to accept it for what your scholars have submitted it as. Authentic. Sahih.
Yeah, we're not saying that this is historically accurate. We're saying that according to Muslim scholars, this is what they say is true. And based upon what they're saying is true, these are the logical outcomes.
Wacky, quacky outcomes, Nadir.
So that should pretty much destroy his whole. Now, I didn't get a chance to respond to everything because
you have yet to respond to anything.
Did he respond to anything?
And besides, again, guys, I want to just reinforce this little teeny weeny bit. This is not the rebuttal stage. This is his opening. I don't think Nadir had anything other than his little list there as his opening statement for 20 minutes. That's it. The rest has been rebuttal. And even the little snippet that he had of 6 people seemed to be a little incomplete compared to what he said. Again, it would have been very impressive if you would scroll down and there have been, hundreds of people there. Okay, that would have been, at least interesting to examine. And you could have made your whole argument based upon that criteria, establishing what a demon possessed is. And definitely, if you would have gone to the Bible and actually read the Bible and said, okay, this is the criteria according to the Christians of what a demon-possessed individual would be, is this criteria here. Okay, based on this, these people fall into it and Muhammad does not. Okay, that would be a decent argument that we could then go down and examine.
Yeah. Let me quote really quick one of the riwayas concerning one of the narrations concerning the Satanic verses that speaks to Muhammad not being aware of him doing that. This riwayah in the book Before Orthodoxy, number 23, and it tells you, the narration is, Muhammad recited words from Satan after becoming drowsy. And there are several. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 I have underlined that speak of Muhammad becoming drowsy. So that's fine. Drowsy, no drowsy, doesn't matter. He did something Allah said he could not do. The spot of Satan was removed. His heart was washed. He was the prophet of Allah. He was the best of mankind. He was, Allah said Satan couldn't touch his righteous ones, his slaves, his servants. What happened? Drowsy or not, excuse or no excuse. He did it. He did something Allah himself said could not happen, would not happen, should not happen. You got to deal with that, Nadir. Every Muslim out there needs to deal with it. There you go.
And I'll respond to the whole thing about the aorta stuff, which is quite easy to respond to. But like I said, it was all fabrication to begin with, but that's okay. So let me move on by giving you the smoking gun evidence. And this,
he likes that phrase, smoking gun evidence. This is the smoking gun evidence on
smoking something.
Christianity. This is a smoking gun that kills Christianity. It's like, wait, hold on, buddy. You like these catchphrases. Okay. Don't want to be too nicky picky, but that's something he will say a lot. And again, that's indication that someone's not really being honest with something if they're using the same phrase in this extreme reuse case.
goes back to what actually started this debate was the Matt Slick debate, which Louis was challenged me on. And I did mention to Louis, you're going to need to answer the scientific evidence for Islam. So what is this? And I made that as a condition for him. And so what?
So you made that as a condition for this debate that you had to talk about the scientific miracles in the Quran?
I challenged him for debate when he was debating Olin. That's when it happened. I had George ask him if he would debate this topic, and he accepted. Had nothing to do with Matt Slick's. Matt Slick's debate is where he basically hung himself by referencing the things I was going to throw at him, and so it kind of backfired on him. So, yeah.
Exactly is this scientific evidence which I'm talking about?
Okay, so this is quite a bit into his opening statement, and he's finally getting to something, hopefully. His smoking gun that proves that Muhammad could not possibly be demon-possessed.
Okay. Well, in addition to what we have seen, what else do we know about the demon-possessed prophet? You know, is that he brings misery and suffering and death into the lives of those people who accept him as Lord and Savior.
Aisha? The women of Islam, no one suffers as much as the women of Islam? I mean, that's pretty okay. If you want to use that as criteria. Not looking so good for Muhammad.
Yeah.
And what is astonishing about the Prophet Muhammad of Islam and the miracle which I'm about to show to you today is that Muhammad alleviates and rescues people from the suffering and misery of that demon prophet, which the Christians follow. Now, before I begin, let me share my desktop.
What was he referencing there?
He's referencing Jesus, actually.
Jesus or Paul?
Well, if he's classifying Paul as being the true prophet, fine. But he did just say that every prophet in the Bible is a demon-possessed prophet. So he would definitely have considered Jesus as a demon-possessed prophet by his definitions. And that would have also been wrong in Islam as well. So, and I'm told by many, many Muslims that they respect all religions. So that doesn't seem very respectful to me, in my opinion.
Right.
Before I begin, I want to make it very clear, we as Muslims, we believe in Jesus as a true prophet of God. He was.
So he's a prophet of God in the Bible, though. So, according to Muslim belief. So now he's going to try to quantify it so he doesn't get in too much trouble. But he still threw Moses under the bus.
The Messiah. But unfortunately, the New Testament has a demonic version of him. This, what you are seeing in front of your screen, if you, I could share my screen again, Carmen, if you allow me to. This is misery. This is suffering. This
is a document you have made. Again, if you're doing PowerPoints, fine. But if you're going to say that everyone has to show their references, you need to follow the same criteria.
Mm-hmm.
This is misery and suffering caused by the demon-possessed prophet, which the Christians follow. Let's take a look. Now, what's very interesting here, you will find in the New Testament that you will find, allegedly, Jesus talks about mustard seed, alcohol, epilepsy, and we'll get to that, and we'll get, as well as meat consumption and many other things. Muhammad comes and talks about those same exact things. Let's see who does a better job. Let's go and then see how, allegedly, how the demon-possessed prophet does against the true Lord and Savior. Let's see how that works. So science today tells us, so basically the Quran condemns alcohol in chapter 5, verse 90, as you can see on your screen right there. Science tells us that, and this is, I'm quoting from a scientific journal. This is the European Child and Adolescent Psychiatry article. And just please hit pause on your YouTube screen to get all my references. Listen to what science says. Because of the Islamic faith, Muslim women are 50 times lower than the global average to give birth to a fetal alcohol child. This is a child born with defects because the mother was drinking alcohol. Muslim women, and they gave the credit to the Islamic faith, but it continues. Where the population, in contrast, wine is a part of communion in the Catholic faith, and abstinence is much less common. So the point of the article here is, if you want to study this disease, you got to go to the Christians. That's where you're going to find it. So here's a question for Louis today. How do you explain that an alleged demon-possessed prophet saved millions of children from fetal alcohol syndrome, while the true Lord and Savior let them perish? Now, some say, okay, but you see, there's some good in alcohol. There is some good in it. It can help you with your heart. But this is a lack of understanding of science. Although there is some good in it, the overall evil outweighs any good. This is what science says. So there's no need to even try to bring up some good stuff about alcohol. So we got the evil of it. And this is the article I'm quoting from, CNN article. No amount of alcohol is good for your overall health, global study says. Now, many studies have shown that the overall health risk of drinking alcohol outweighs any benefits. Look what Allah says in the Quran. It says inside chapter 2, verse 219. They have some benefit for the people, but their harm is far greater than their benefit. Word for word agreement with modern science. So the question I would ask again, of Louis, how do you explain an alleged demon-possessed prophet saving these millions of children, while true Lord and Savior let them perish?
So let's see. So if you make it illegal for people to drink, punishable under law, less people drink, and therefore they have less people drinking, less mothers drinking. Okay, fine. True. But that, again, does not address the issues that Louis brought up at the beginning, saying, hey, look at all these indications that he's demon-possessed. You're just looking at one set of data, focusing on one set of data and saying, see, the result is this. This is fantastic. This is proof that it's true. It's because it's one set of data. What about the rest of the data? What about child marriage? Oh, that went up. What about slavery? Oh, that went up. Well, we know Nadir likes slavery anyway. So all these other things have caused issues. And you look at one thing and saying, a broken clock was right. Not a very good argument.
Yep. Yeah, I wanted to quote this another riwayah, and we gotta get familiar with these terms. I know it's the Muslims with all their terminology in Arabic. It gets old at times. You just say it in English if you have it in English. No need to sound eloquent by trying to pronounce it in Arabic if you're slaughtering the language. But here I only have the Arabic, so I can't do anything other. The riwayah 22, the snippet that's been transmitted by Muslims in the first, second centuries of Islam, and concerning the satanic verses. Because I was looking for this one, I couldn't find it, but here it is. When he reached the end of surah, remember, he's reading the Quran. It says he reached the end of this surah. When he reached the end of the surah, he made the sajda, and his companions made the sajda, and the mushrikun made the sajda because of the mention of their gods. And when he raised his head, they picked him up and ran with him between the two parts of Mecca, saying, the prophet of the Bani Abd Manaf, and this is an exclamation, until when Jibril came to him, he went over with him to recite those two phrases. Jibril said, God forbid that I should have instructed you to recite this. This distressed him greatly. So get down. So God sent down, confronting his soul. And that was, and we have not sent before you. And then it just puts the three dots, it continues. In other words, the revelation of the prophets before having Satan put something in their mouth is there. But here it says that the pagans lifted him up. It was hero Muhammad. Touchdown, baby. You've just accepted the worship of our goddesses. And they picked him up and they paraded him. It says they picked him up and ran with him between the two parts of Mecca. Holy cow, that's no small thing. You think all that excitement with pagans picking you up and parading you and saying, hey, you're one of us now. would have caused him to think, oh, what did I really say? And then Jabril comes back and rebukes him. And then he's very distressed over it. Unlike what Nadir said, he said, oh, it's okay, Mo, don't worry about it. We'll fix this. No, he was rebuked. But Muhammad was paraded by the pagans as one of them. He had returned to the religion of his fathers. He became a pagan. He accepted intercession of the goddesses, Alat al-Uzza Manat, and they became partners with Satan in the worship of these deities. That's hardcore. It's right here. Highlighted. Almost the whole page I highlighted for the heck of it. There you go. Yeah. Great book. Excellent book. Trace down the references, and you can close their mouths. What are they going to do?
Well, claim that it's wacky, quacky interpretation, and
that's
all,
the ticket.
All false. And you see, you are, just
a bluff. Huh? So you're probably playing cards, and he cheated.
Liar! Liar! Liar!
Get back, witch!
Funny.
I'm not going to be able to use that word very often, so I have to use it accordingly.
Well, I can't laugh. It's killing me.
It will wrap up his opening.
Okay.
Animation. And then I think that'll be it. And you guys can see the rest of the live stream over the complete one over on Ministry to Muslims.
You see, it is not Muhammad who's fitting the role of the demon-possessed prophet, but your Lord and Savior. That's the only way you can understand.
That's very clearly him saying that Jesus is demon-possessed prophet. There's no way around that one.
Blasphemer.
Understand this. Okay, let me give you another example so you to better understand this analogy. Let's say there's a boy who is choking and Jesus is just watching him, and he's like, he's just watching him, A minute later, Muhammad comes in and says, oh my God, what's going on? And rescues the boy and pulls out that whatever thing is from his throat and saves the boy. The question is, everybody would look at Jesus and say, well, what are you doing? Why didn't you save that boy? So you see here, who's fitting the profile?
That is a complete fabrication of a situation that never occurred or ever happened.
Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about.
Out of the demon-possessed prophet. It's not Muhammad. So we know why there's a similarities between Islam and Christianity on these issues of alcohol, demon and epilepsy. So let's go to epilepsy, because that's what kind of sparked this whole debate. So
yeah, that's what you should have done in the beginning.
And Jesus have to say about epilepsy here. Okay.
He's getting close to the end of his opening, and he's finally getting to the topic at hand after making a complete fabricated straw man that never occurred, an event that never occurred.
You got about 4 more minutes here. So the misery and suffering doesn't appear to end over there. Well, what we now know from science is that science tells us that there's another problem with the Bible. And that so basically it's creating the same kind of confusion we have between the flu and COVID. They share the same symptoms. So some people who have COVID think they got the flu and vice versa. So as a result, many people die because they share the same symptoms. So we got the same problem with the Bible now, because the Bible in Mark chapter 9, 18 presented a boy who is allegedly demon possessed. But guess what? Okay, in 9:18, it starts listing the symptoms of this so-called demonic possession. And guess what? They're the same symptoms of someone suffering from epilepsy. So as a result, now these people are getting, stigmatized and being viewed as being epileptics. Listen to what the scientific research has to say about this. This is by Dr. Carl Oten-Nakin and Mia Tuft. And in the research article, and these are 2 neurologists, they say it's a Christianization reinforcing the beliefs in the healing of rituals. The New Testament describes how Jesus healed a boy suffering from lunacy, epilepsy, and Jesus rebuked the devil. Okay, so if they put the
I think the key is he healed him. Not that it was an attempted healing and it failed. He actually did it, which again
Yeah.
is more than Mo ever did.
Blame right onto the New Testament. Let's read over here in the next reference, which I have here, which I can't find anymore. Okay, I'll find it for you in just a second. But science today has made it clear that, unfortunately, the New Testament is causing this confusion between people who have demonic possession, allegedly demonic possession, and epileptics. It's making epileptics look like they're demon possessed, because the New Testament said they share the same symptoms. Now let's go to Prophet Muhammad. An epileptic comes to, or someone suffering from seizures come to him. And now does Muhammad accuse this guy of being demon possessed? No. Listen to what he says. I will invoke Allah to cure you. That's it. Now this has had a profound impact, because those ignorant Muslims who believed, and other people who believed that this is a result of demonic possession, that actually challenged their faith. They're like, what? Muhammad didn't accuse them of being demon possessed? In fact, that was a discourse which was just happening today. I'll read that to you over here in this article over here. So Islam is working to dispel the myth, this harmful stigma of which epileptics suffered from, that they were demon possessed because they are sharing the same symptoms. Muhammad works to abolish that. So here I only given you 2 examples because my time is up, but I'll give you more examples here. But I think from these 2 examples we see here that, unfortunately, the demon-possessed prophet is the one who stigmatized vulnerable people who suffer from disabilities, thus leading to their persecution. That's the work of the demon-possessed prophet. All right. Now, again, we believe in Jesus, but the version of Jesus in the New Testament is not acceptable. Okay. To cause so much suffering and misery to vulnerable people, to look at people's disabilities and say, I think you're demon possessed, because when you go, and foam's coming out of your mouth, the Bible's inside Mark chapter 9,
You pause that
18
for a
says that's the
second?
work of demons.
Okay, can you go back to that website, Islam question and answer?
Absolutely.
And do a search, jinn possession from an Islamic perspective.
You're talking about on here. Okay.
Or maybe even the Google search will take you to that website. But let's see if they have it like that on there. Because I removed some of the headings, and so I removed the actual reference from my
So
notes.
from an Islamic perspective. Okay.
Okay,
It
go
actually auto pulled it up.
Okay, and
Here,
when
so let me
he
share this.
answers, is epilepsy caused by jinn? If you scroll down maybe a little bit, it says question, then can jinn possess humans? Then it says, is jinn possession a disease? Let's start there. Is jinn possession a disease?
Is that on the list that is here? So
Oh, wait. You're not on that site. Hold on. Or you are, but you're not on the article.
I said search on it, and that's what they gave me was this.
Okay, do a Google search then with that question.
Sure.
Jinn possession from an Islamic perspective. Actually, I might have the phone number. Let's see. Oh, no, because I have 2 different articles here.
So from
Okay.
Quranic Q&A, let me see if this is it, the one you're referring to.
Okay. Does it say, can jinn possess humans?
Can jinn possess humans? Yep.
Okay, let's look at that. And the answer is yes, correct?
Can jinn possess humans? There you go. Yes.
Okay,
it is
let's
possible.
keep going down. Is jinn possession a disease? Right
Add
there.
that one up.
Right there at the top. Is jinn possession a disease? Answer, possession is a kind of sickness. Let's keep going, where it says, is epilepsy caused by the jinn?
I do not see that one on the list.
Oh, you know what? That's another article. My bad. So type in Google search, is epilepsy caused by the jinn? So here we have this website with this article saying, yes, demon possession is a form of disease. So that's there. Nadir, we're going to your sources, your websites.
You said epilepsy a symptom of what?
Is epilepsy caused by the jinn?
Oh, caused by Zoom.
Yeah. And it's the same website. Should pull up an article with that question on it. Excuse me.
Q&A. Okay, yep, got it.
Okay. And it says question. And it's he's asking, is epilepsy a sign of jinn? And the answer is epilepsy in most cases is caused by the jinn, and in some cases by some defect in the body, brain or nerves, or mood swings, or some weakness in the physical structure, which is exactly the case I was making about Muhammad. Muhammad showed signs of epilepsy, but he also showed signs of demonic possession. Here, the Muslim scholars are clearly saying epilepsy in most cases is caused by the jinn. Nadir, go talk to your scholars. And I have article after article from your websites, your scholars, concerning this topic, and a plethora of other stuff. And that's what we do, folks. We go to their websites and we throw this back at them. Your own scholars have made it very clear that epilepsy is caused in most cases by the jinn. Now, again, you're going to have variants. You're going to have disagreements amongst the Muslims. But for the most part, they believe this is possible. And so when he wants to accuse us of saying, oh, you stigmatize every epileptic. No, your scholar just said in most cases, there's jinn activity involved. So what do you do, Nadir? Tell them to update their articles with accurate information about Islamic demonology, because they're lying to you. There you go.
So again, I want to plug this for you guys so you guys can go take a look here. Let's go ahead and share this. This is Ministry to Muslims YouTube channel. You just go M2M Network. You'll pull this up. And here is the debate that we've been reviewing. If you guys would like to go back and see the rebuttals and see the rest of it, you're more than welcome to go ahead and check that on out. I will share the link in the live chat as well. So you guys can go check it out. See, it doesn't get better than this. This was the highlight. I'm sorry. This was the highlight of it. Debate. There we go. So, Louis, thank you for going through this struggle.
Yes, sir. I apologize. I'm a little under the weather, so I'm not as trying not to cough while I'm speaking. It's been hard, but I made it.
I was talking about your debate with Nadir, surviving that.
Yeah. So there you go, Nadir. Go over this video, Nadir, and give your rebuttals. Contact your brother in Christ, who's not your brother in Christ, but my brother in Christ, but that's his channel name, and tell him that you have answers, responses to what I just presented. You accused me of fabrications, lies, misinformation, not going to the Muslim sources, going to non-Muslim sources. It was pretty rude to simply dismiss everything I presented. I get it. I didn't give you the references on the spot, but I asked you during the debate, what references specifically would you like? And when you asked for, I think, 2 of them, I gave them to you. And I would have continued to give you the references because, as you see, I have them available. They were at hand. Everything I have here tonight, I had at the debate on my table. So it's not that I didn't have the information. And now what I think is good about that is that it has caused people to want to know more, to look for this information. So hopefully this is a springboard from which we can go further into the issue of demonic possession in Muhammad and dismiss him as a false prophet, not only by biblical standards, but by his own standards. So it's not only the Bible that condemns Muhammad as an antichrist. I almost say it in Greek, sorry. Antichristus, hereticus. That's what we have, Nadir. I gave the references. There they are. Now, deal with the information.
So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for the chat. A special thank you to our channel members for helping us get this out there, and so people can hear the truth about Islam, the truth that is in the Muslim sources. We're not doing this because we want to be right. We are doing this because we want the truth to be known. We want Muslims to come to a full life in Jesus Christ. And the only way to do that is to come to the foot of the cross. So
Amen.
that is our main goal. So Truth Defenders, is there anywhere that people can find you that want to follow up with this and maybe eventually get some content from you?
Well, I do have my email, truthdefenders@hotmail.com. I'm an old man. I have Hotmail. And I do have a website, but there's some issues with it. I need to update them and get the bugs out. So I do have the website, Truth Defenders. And I do have a YouTube channel, Truth Defenders, but there's nothing on it. There is a secondary website with the name Truth Defenders as well that has, I think, 3 videos that I uploaded a long time ago. But for now, like I said, I've been retired in public ministry for a lot of years, about 15. And I'm a little rusty, so I'm just starting to get back into things. And we'll see how it goes. But yeah, stay tuned with truthdefenders.com and YouTube.
Sounds good. Well, guys, next time the Muslim calls you a liar, you know how to respond. And I will see you guys next time.
Good night.
The bluff, huh? So you're probably playing cards, and he cheated.
Liar!